£50 a week, delivering savings of almost £2,000 across a school year. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer is insisting the policy will help parents.
As any parent with young children will tell you, childcare and nursery places are really essential. They're so good for children in their development and making sure that when they arrive at primary school they've got the skills that they need. Really good for parents and carers because they can get back into the labour market, so very good also for the economy. And our scheme is fully funded, fully costed, but also fully planned, so it'll be wrapped around primary schools.
Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davy has launched his party's manifesto with a pledge to put health and care at the heart of his campaign. Sir Ed spoke about his own experiences caring for his mother, who died from Hodgkin lymphoma. The party leader said his experience and the experience of other carers are exhausting sometimes, but also full of love.
And these are the experiences that we must bring out of the shadows. Because the truth is that unless we properly value care, unless we properly support carers, we will never be able to fix the crisis in our NHS or get our economy back on track.
Reform UK has set out its economic policy for the election campaign. Plans include raising the personal tax threshold to £20,000, abolishing IR35 for sole traders and raising the VAT threshold for small businesses to £150,000. Local media reports suggest that Dr Michael Mosley died from natural causes after the body of the TV doctor was found on a Greek island. The 67-year-old went missing after leaving his wife and friends on the island of Symi on Wednesday. He appeared to have taken the wrong route back to his hotel and collapsed, where he couldn't be easily seen by emergency search teams. And finally, the Prince of Wales has wished the England football team good luck for their Euro 2024 bid. During a visit to St George's Park in Burton-upon-Trent, William shared advice from Prince Louis to, quote, eat twice the amount during the tournament. The president of the FA also presented shirts to the 26 players taking part. The Euros kick off this Friday with Scotland taking on Germany in Munich. For the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code. It's on your screen right now, or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Back now.
Thank you, Ray. Now, I've got to say, I've been looking forward to this show all weekend. Let's get stuck straight into it. Now, the Shadow Paymaster General, Jonathan Ashworth, is talking about Tory claims that its plan to tighten sickness benefit rules would eventually save £12 billion a year. Let's have a little listen in.
The Treasury suggested this change would cost £10 million a year in additional administration costs. The money's not there. Fourthly, on mental health. Increased funding for talking therapies was announced in the 2023 autumn statement. And again, not only has the impact of this been baked in by the OBR, they were clear that the savings did not outweigh the costs. The Tories have announced more money for the same scheme, and the same will be true again. The money's not there. Fifth, on the acceleration of legacy benefits migrating to universal credit. In autumn 2022, the Treasury and the OBR said the government would save money by delaying the migration to universal credit. Now the Tories are saying they can save money by accelerating the migration to universal credit. It's desperate. They're making it up as they go along. The money's not there. Six, the Tories have not offered any reform to personal independence payments. They have simply said they will look at the options. They can't save money when they haven't even identified what they are committing to. This isn't a credible plan. It's more like a wing and a prayer. Yes, the money is not there. Finally, they claim they will tackle benefit fraud. Let me take you through the numbers on benefit fraud. Overpayments due to fraud and error have risen from £4.5 billion in 2019-20 to £9.7 billion in the latest figures. Rishi Sunak has lost £1 million to benefit, fraud and error every hour he's been Prime Minister. So not only is the money not there, the DWP are actively losing money to fraud. Taken together, every one of these 7 pledges has either been banked by the OBR or has no savings attached to it at all. So whatever the Conservatives pledge on welfare savings in their manifesto tomorrow, it will produce not a single penny of new money relative to the last OBR forecast. And whatever desperate pledge they make, these are promises they cannot fund from savings they cannot find. The money's simply not there. Next, let me quickly turn to the tax avoidance savings, because this is very straightforward. That's page 5 of your document. The Tories have claimed they'll raise £6 billion by cracking down on tax avoidance, and they have made 4 pledges so far, which they say will be wholly or partly funded from those savings: the National Service Scheme, the pensioner tax allowance, the extra funding for towns, and the increased thresholds for the child benefit tax change. Rachel Reeves's tax avoidance plan in their press notice for the last 2 announcements to try and lend credibility to their costings. But so far, they have forgotten one crucial thing. Labour's plan to tackle tax non-compliance, announced by Rachel in April, recognised the need for £900 million of upfront investment in HMRC staffing and technology in order to deliver the projected £6 billion of savings. This is why our plan produces a net saving not of £6 billion, but £5.1 billion. We would assume these upfront costs will be accounted for in our manifesto tomorrow, and that will become crucial when you look at the pledges which they are aiming to fund from that tax avoidance pot. But that brings me to the third point.
OK, that was Jonathan Ashworth there, steaming in to the Tories' £12 billion of benefits savings, the plan. And let's get some instant reaction to what Jonathan Ashworth had to say there. I'm now joined by Miriam Case, who's the Conservative parliamentary candidate for Penistone and Stocksbridge. Miriam, welcome to the show. So, Jonathan Ashworth steaming in there, saying the money is simply not there. He's saying the Tories are desperate. They're making it up as they go along. It's a wing and a prayer. And then he put the boot in when he said Rishi Sunak has lost £1 million to benefit fraud every hour he's been the Prime Minister. What's your response to that?
Well, I didn't catch it all, but it does seem to be a little bit of kind of political arguing about the figures. I think we've all seen over the past few weeks that actually our tax system is so complicated, our economy is so complicated that you can pick and choose figures and make one party seem better than the other and one plan seem better than the other. But I think we're missing the point here, which is that there are some deep structural issues in our economy that have been there for 30 or 40 years potentially. And actually, as politicians, we need to be honest with the public about what we can and can't do with the economy and the kind of things that we would need to do if we do want reform in the long term. And Labour seem to be missing some very important points here. One of those is about demographics. So we have an ageing population. We have far fewer working people for each retiree than we did 30 or 40 years ago. That completely changes the tax base. We have a negative balance of trade now. That means we import more than we export. Until 1997, when the Labour government got in, we actually had a fairly even balance of trade, but since then it's been very negative. Has a real impact on our economy. So there are some much bigger structural issues that are actually far more important than some of the nitpicking that Labour and other parties seem to be doing.
And Miriam, you wrote a very thought-provoking thread on Twitter X about this pensions burden, about the fact there are now, we used to have 4 working-age people to every pensioner. Now it's half of that, it's to 2. And so we have a range of options. We can either raise taxes on the young, or we can try a different method. You came up with a very thought-provoking idea to encourage people, to pay people, to bribe people, in effect, to have more children. Tell us more.
I don't think we should be bribing people or telling people to have more children. But people are telling us that they do want more children, but can't have children or are deciding not to have children because of all sorts of reasons. But one of those reasons is economic. If you think about the burden that young people face now, whether that's tax, student loan, house prices, all those things make it much more difficult to start a family than perhaps it was 20 or 30 years ago. Now, the problem with that is it means we're not having enough babies, we're not having enough children who will grow into adults to go into the workplace to replace those who are leaving the workplace and retiring. And that's why we have this demographic problem, because since the 1970s, we haven't been having enough babies, if you like, to replace the people who are retiring. So this is at the root of our economic problems. Yes, there's waste in the economy. Yes, there's fraud. Yes, there are bad decisions, of course, but they are nothing compared to this demographic problem that we have. So I think we and all of the Western countries, some of which are now trying these things, should do everything we can to get the barriers out of the way, to take those barriers away for young people that want to have children, because having children is not just something that most people want to do, it's absolutely essential for the future of our society and our economy. And of course, we should be paying pensions to people in old age, we should be looking after people in old age, but that should not be at the expense of the young. That should not be stopping young people from having their dreams of having a family and having a house. So these are difficult economic questions that we have to ask. There will be trade-offs, of course there will, but we should be honest about those as politicians and not just say, we'll cut income tax, we'll cut corporation tax, we'll do what Nigel Farage was offering to do, £70 billion we'll take off the tax bill. But where is that going to come from and how are we going to pay for it?
OK, can I ask you about Rishi Sunak? You're probably delighted to see he's finally come out of his bunker. He was missing in action, if you like, from the electoral battlefield over the weekend after his D-Day debacle. Miriam, do you think he's still the right man to lead you into this general election battle, or is it time for Rishi Sunak to raise the white flag, call it a day?
Well, we are in the middle of this election battle. He is the Prime Minister. He is leading us into the election. But I think, as I've said before on a number of occasions, really some of the issues that we've faced as a Conservative Party over the last 14 years, actually, are about the fact that the Conservative Party itself is such a broad church. You have people like me who would say that, you know, I'm a Conservative, I believe in strong family, community and nation. I'm very patriotic. You have people who I would say are much more liberal, but we're all in the same party. But that has made a problem in terms of passing the kind of legislation and kind of acting the kind of way that Conservative voters would expect. And that's made it difficult for all leaders to form some sort of plan that all the MPs would support. So I think, look, Rishi Sunak, he's called this election. He has nailed his colours to the mast. We're in the middle of it now. I'm finding on doorsteps very few of our voters, our Conservative voters in 2019, want to vote Labour. They really don't want to vote Labour. The challenge is getting people to come out. And I think the more we can show people how high the stakes are, yes, they might be rightly frustrated with the Conservative government, rightly frustrated with the Conservative Party, but do they want a Keir Starmer government with a majority of who knows how many hundred, able to destroy our constitution, able to embed even more these kind of left-wing ideas in our institutions that would make it far more difficult in the future for any Conservative government to roll back? That's what's at stake here.
OK, Miriam Gates, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have your company on the show. Thank you very much. Now, here are the candidates for the constituency of Penistone and Stocksbridge. Conservative, Miriam Gates, as you just saw there. The Green Party is Andrew Davis. Reform UK is Edward Dillingham. Liberal Democrats, Robert Rees. And the Labour Party, Marie Tidball. Now let's get more on today's developments in the election campaign with 24 days to go before we head to the polls. And our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, is on Labour's battle bus. Catherine, welcome to the show. There's a wall of red there. We can't quite... There you are, Catherine. You're not on the bus, but you're in town. Right. So the Labour Party, they want us to talk about education, education, education. It's all starting to feel very 1997. Tell us more.
Yes, good afternoon, Martin. From York, they've let us off the bus for lunch. So, but I was with Sir Keir Starmer and Bridget Phillipson, the Shadow Education Secretary, this morning in Nuneaton, where they are talking about their plans for childcare. A couple of things. They're talking about free breakfast clubs for primary school children. They're talking about 100,000 extra childcare places that they say is going to come from reusing 3,000 classrooms that are either not being used or being underused and repurposing them into nurseries. They estimate that these and other measures will help to get 750,000 women, and let's face it, it's mostly women, isn't it? But people that are otherwise stuck at home looking after young children back into the workplace or increasing their hours. But there has been a bit of a row, hasn't there, because of the comments that Emily Thornberry made yesterday about the effect that Labour's plans to put VAT on private school fees might have on the state sector. She basically said that it would be fine if a whole load of kids went to the state sector and class sizes were bigger as a result. Now, Bridget Phillipson has rapidly knocked that down and said, not at all, there is spare capacity. I would say the birth rate has dropped. That's something that your previous guest, Miriam Cates, talks about a lot. But that's rather at the lower end for the little ones. I'm not sure that that's going to help with older children. But anyway, so that's what Labour are talking about today. Their manifesto isn't out till Thursday. The Conservatives, Rishi Sunak has been spotted, the Prime Minister, after spending the weekend lying low, out and about, but not talking to the press, has spoken to the cameras today, said that he hopes that voters can find it in their hearts to forgive him for what happened with the D-Day commemorations. He obviously realises that this is a very, very big misstep and it's likely to have cost them a lot of votes. Meanwhile, Sir Ed Davy launching the Lib Dem manifesto. He was last seen on the most horrific ride at Thorpe Park, but he's saying that only the Lib Dems can save the NHS.
That's what we call a political rollercoaster. Catherine Forster, live from York, thanks for joining us on the show. Now, I've lots more on the election campaign throughout the show, of course, and there's plenty of coverage on our website, gbnews.com, and you've helped to make it the fastest growing national news website in the country, so thank you very much. Now, the cosy European Union establishment has been rocked by the outcome of the European elections over the weekend. Eurosceptic parties have made massive gains across the continent. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Almost half of those seeking to have an affair are happier with their job than with their primary relationship. But what exactly does a cheater do for a living?
Well, medical assistants and nurses, surprisingly, top the lists of professions for female cheaters. And it's jobs in IT or tech for male cheaters, which I think is less of a surprise.
No.
This is all according to a survey by the dating site Ashley Madison.
OK, so why do people cheat? To answer this, we're joined now by broadcaster and psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Good morning, Lucy.
Morning, Lucy.
So, is it OK of me to say naughty nurses in this day and age? Am I going to get cancelled for that?
You're out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Been cancelled.
See ya.
There's the door.
But yes, you're talking about the caring professions, and I think it's very appropriate.
Surprised by that.
Women, well, because they're very nurturing, very loving, very giving, whereas the males who are in tech and IT, very strategic.
Is there a link between high-pressure jobs, maybe nurses infamously, you know, they're working long hours, underpaid, stressed out? Is there a link between jobs of that nature and cheating, maybe as a relief?
Absolutely. Is it just about sex, or is it about emotional connection? Is it about emotional validation? And increasingly, people are discovering that their primary relationship is just not a place where they feel safe.
This survey found that personality didn't actually come into it that much. It was about half and half if you're an introvert or an extrovert that you'd be likely to have an affair.
I think that's right. And I think that just speaks to the fact that all people want to have a good emotional connection. So it doesn't matter whether you're really social or whether you're someone who has to recharge your batteries in private time, that actually we only ever want three things in life. We want to feel safe, we want to feel loved, but we also want to feel heard. And in increasingly a number of marriages and long-term relationships, we get into grooves, we get into ruts, and we stop hearing our partner, we stop listening to them, and they stop listening to us.
The People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Earlier on Breakfast.
I think it's a very, actually desperately sad cautionary tale for tourists and locals alike.
We have come up with this plan. We have very clear means to fund it, and we're really hoping to get into government.
We are pledging to recruit another 8,000 police officers on top of the record numbers we've already got.
Immigration is probably the biggest single issue that people talk about when I meet them, and Reform seem willing to discuss it.
From 6, it's Breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 3:26. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Now, later in the show, I'll look back at the life of the great Rick Mayall, who sadly died 10 years ago yesterday and is still sorely missed. Now to the most significant night in European politics since we voted to leave the European Union, and the cosy Euro establishment is reeling after voters gave them a right good kicking. The result was so bad for the Belgian government that the country's Prime Minister has resigned, and after French President Emmanuel Macron's party suffered major losses, he also called a snap election, a decision that's been branded an extraordinary gamble. Well, I'm joined now by our reporter, Charlie Peters. Charlie, welcome to the show. So, Charlie, 5 years ago this week, I was elected as an MEP. Today, the spirit of Brexit is absolutely alive across the European bloc. We're seeing the biggest realignment of European politics in the European Union's history. Tell us more.
That's right, Martin. A significant rise for right-wing parties across Europe last night, leading this morning to people waking up in Europe to news that Emmanuel Macron is calling those snap legislative elections for later this month, 30th of June, and the second round on the 7th of July. He says that the French people need clarity after the gap between public opinion and his own government has widened to a, frankly, unprecedented level. Macron's leadership has been fraught with difficulty since its inception. He's the first French incumbent president to not carry on a majority in the Assembly since 1997. This is the first hung parliament in France since 1988, and those 2 years have been fraught indeed for Emmanuel Macron. You'll recall last year, Martin, that King Charles was meant to have his first foreign trip in France, but that was cancelled due to rioting, so dangerous that foreign dignitaries like the British monarch couldn't visit the capital city. That was caused when Macron wanted to push through some reforms that might be considered quite normal in Britain, raising the retirement age from 62 to 64. But from a French perspective, with its bloated state and significant public debt, that was considered an extreme move and sparked that protest. You also had the Gilets jaunes protests back in 2017, 2018 over a proposed diesel tax. Now, with the reform towards the pension age, the retirement age, that was only pushed through after a special measure he brought in, which would require people to vote against him on a vote of no confidence. So he has managed to swing that through. But on other areas, trying to tackle the right-wing parties, in particular the National Rally and also the Reconquest movement with Eric Zemmour, he has found himself moving towards the right-wing position on immigration, but still not sufficiently to prevent some 35% voting for the National Rally last night. But there are also significant victories for other parties across the continent. We saw the right-wing Austrian party, the Freedom Party, topping the polls there. The so-called Rainbow Coalition in Germany also suffering significantly. Olaf Scholz's SPD party coming third, with the AfD lurching into second position. Giorgia Meloni's party in Italy also secured significant victories, and also Geert Wilders in the Netherlands picking up several seats as well. A significant victory for right-wing parties in Europe, coming at the cost not only of the centre and the centre-left, but also the Greens, who took a particularly large tumble in Germany.
Yeah, the Greens were the biggest losers, the right the biggest winners, a deep reset, and now, astonishingly, Charlie Peters, a quarter of all MEPs elected to the EU are anti-EU. Promises to be an extraordinarily interesting term when they kick off in July. Thank you very much, Charlie Peters, for joining us. Now, there's lots more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, and I'll talk about Prince William. He's been with the England squad today ahead of Euro 2024, which starts on Friday. But first, it's your news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Good afternoon, it's 3:30. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. 2 boys have become the youngest convicted murderers in Britain since Robert Thompson and John Venables, both aged 11, were found guilty of killing 2-year-old James Bulger in 1993. The 12-year-olds were found guilty of murdering a man with a machete in a Wolverhampton park. They stabbed 19-year-old Sean Sisahai through the heart in November last year. The jury's decision to convict was unanimous. Sean Sisahai's parents have said they will never be able to get over the loss of their beloved son. The Prime Minister says he never considered quitting despite heavy criticism over his early departure from D-Day commemorations in Normandy. Rishi Sunak is promising to carry on until the last day of this campaign. It comes after the Prime Minister kept a low profile over the weekend, avoiding questions from reporters as rumours increased that he may step down. And the Prime Minister's promising to recruit 8,000 neighbourhood police officers in England and Wales if the Tories are re-elected. Rishi Sunak says the plan would be funded in part by hiking visa fees and increasing the immigration health surcharge for overseas students. However, Labour's calling it another empty promise from a desperate Conservative party. Labour's promising to deliver free breakfast clubs in schools, part of a new childcare plan they say will save parents over £400 a year. They're also claiming it will cut almost 500,000 days of school absences. For parents who already pay for before-school childcare, Labour's funded breakfast clubs could cut the costs by up to £50 a week, delivering savings of almost £2,000 across a school year. Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davy has launched his party's manifesto with a pledge to put healthcare at the heart of our campaign. Sir Ed spoke about growing up caring for his mother, who died from Hodgkin lymphoma. The party leader said the experiences of carers is exhausting sometimes, but also full of love. Reform UK has set out its economic policy for the election campaign. Plans include raising personal tax threshold allowance to £20,000, abolishing IR35 for sole traders and raising the VAT threshold for small businesses to £150,000. And local media reports suggest Dr. Michael Mosley died from natural causes after the body of the TV doctor was found on a Greek island. The 67-year-old went missing after leaving his wife and friends on the island of Symi on Wednesday. He appeared to have taken the wrong route back to his hotel and collapsed where he couldn't easily be seen by emergency search teams. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.2712 and €1.1839. The price of gold is £1,813 and 72 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100's at 8,213 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Sophia. Now, in a few minutes, I'll hear from Ed Davy. He's launched the Liberal Democrats' Manifesto this morning, and this afternoon, he's been at a theme park. He's treating this election campaign like one long holiday, isn't he? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon. Hello again to you. I'm Jules Buckley. There's issues on either side of the M74 in South Lanarkshire. Firstly, southbound, there's debris around Lesmahago Junction 10, so it's part blocked. A lane shut for a collision northbound away from Millbank at 12 up to Junction 11. Now, there's a 2-mile queue and 2 lanes shut southbound down the M1 just before Bedford at Junction 13. A car and a lorry there involved in a collision, and that's what's causing the queues. Still queuing either side of the M3 between the M25 at 2 and Sunbury Junction 1, an earlier bumper there still causing queues. Surrey, the northbound M23, Gatwick Airport at 9 up to the M25 at 8. Lane 1's out for a breakdown. And big queues for the M5 on the northbound side near to Clevedon at 20, a lane shut. Queuing though either side, that's due to a collision. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
The Princess of Wales has reportedly been out and about, enjoying days out with her family, while she continues to undergo her treatment for cancer.
And Buckingham Palace says they have been inundated with tens of thousands of get well soon cards and gifts for the princess.
Yes, I can imagine so. Now we're joined by former royal correspondent at The Sun, Charles Ray. Charles, how do they know she's been out and about with her family?
Good afternoon, Tom and Emily. It's interesting, yes. I mean, how do they know that she's been out and about? No pictures have been seen of the princess out and about. And I'm surprised that with all the people who've got camera phones, that if she has been that out and about, that we haven't seen her. But anyway, we have to accept that she is out and about. She's with her family. But the palace are making it quite clear, pointing out that this should not be confused with her returning to work anytime soon. There are even some suggestions that she won't return to work probably until the autumn, and there's one suggestion that may not even be till next year. Like her father-in-law, she's not sitting at home with her feet up watching daytime TV. She is actually working. She's actually doing things.
And yet, this is a difficult time, of course, for the royal family to navigate everything. The King has cancer, the Princess of Wales has cancer, and we're in the middle of a general election campaign where the royal family have to be very, very careful about where they go, what they do and what they say.
Sure. And as you quite rightly say, Tom, I mean, things have had to be cancelled in any case. So during this next 6 weeks, we are not going to be seeing any members of the royal family doing as much as they possibly can or can do prior to a general election.
The People's Channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians and the media, but it's actually about you. We won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear all sides
as you make your decision in the run-up to polling day.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel. Britain's election channel.
Welcome back. It's 3:38. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Now to a truly horrific crime. Two 12-year-old boys have become the youngest murderers in the UK since the James Bulger killers, after being found guilty of a fatal machete attack on a teenager in Wolverhampton. Family members of both the victims, Sean Tahiri, and the defendants cried and hugged each other in the public gallery as jurors unanimously found both boys guilty of murder. Well, our Home and Security editor, Mark White, is across this story. Mark, welcome to the show. Truly horrific crime, the details of which are just beyond belief. Tell us more.
Yeah, this was in Wolverhampton, in a park in Wolverhampton in November of last year, when the victim, 19-year-old Sean Sisahai, was out with friends in that park and came across the two 12-year-old killers. He was not, according to the trial, which lasted a month and was held at Nottingham Crown Court, known to these two 12-year-old boys. There was nothing done, according to the prosecution, that provoked this particular incident, but a teenager who was with 19-year-old Mr. Sisahai at the time ran when they were attacked by the two 12-year-old boys who produced this machete. And he said he looked behind, but he saw that his friend had fallen. And at that point, according to the court, the two 12-year-old boys set about Mr. Sisahai, beating him and kicking him and stabbing him with the machete. Now, both these 12-year-olds, initially, when they were arrested, failed to cooperate with the police. They did, though, give evidence at the subsequent murder trial in Nottingham, and both boys blamed each other for wielding the fatal blow. But today, a jury found them guilty unanimously of the murder of Sean Sisahai. Now, Mr. Sisahai's parents have been speaking as well in the aftermath of this verdict. They say that they'll never be able to come to terms with the murder of their son. They say that they hope that justice has been served, but they also said that they feel sorry for the parents of the two 12-year-olds. The court was also told, Martin, that one of the 12-year-olds had posed for a photograph carrying the machete and wearing a mask just hours before this murder took place. There was blood staining on the clothing of both the boys involved in this murder. So they will be, we're told, sentenced at a later date, we believe sometime in July. And, of course, frustratingly as well, because both these boys are just 12 years old, they cannot be named, so their name is not in the public domain. That is something that might change, because remember, of course, we got that unprecedented decision by the trial judge involved in the James Bulger murder case to name both Robert Thompson and John Venables as the 11-year-old killers of 2-year-old James. So we await what the trial judge decides to do in relation to this case, Martin.
A case of astonishing brutality. Thank you very much, Mark White, for bringing us up to speed. Now, the Liberal Democrats have launched the first manifesto of this general election campaign, with their leader, Sir Ed Davy, pledging to save the NHS and take Britain back into the European Union's single market.
Fixing our broken relationship with Europe, rebuilding the ties of trade and friendship, boosting our economy and restoring Britain's role on the world stage.
Take Britain back into a European Union that last night surged towards the right. Now, moving on, it's officially summer and we've got a brand new summer giveaway. That's £15,000 in tax-free cash to make summer spectacular, a brand new iPhone, AirPods and £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice. So, if you like theme parks like Ed Davy, visiting stately homes or fancy a spa day out, it could all be on us here at GB News. And here's the details that you need.
It's the Great British Summer Giveaway, and have we got a prize for you? There's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
And next, I'll bring you news of the postmortem following the death of the much-loved TV doctor Michael Mosley. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Showers at first during the rest of today, but they will tend to ease inland later with clear skies overnight, leading to a chilly feel by the start of tomorrow. We've got a northerly airflow across the UK at the moment. Low pressure moving into the continent, leaving behind a lot of cloud and quite frequent showers, especially for the north and the east of the UK. But inland, those showers will tend to ease overnight. Still the odd one going, but many places will turn drier with clear spells. And out of the breeze overnight, under those clear skies, temperatures in some spots will fall into the mid-single figures, perhaps even a touch of grass frost first thing Tuesday in the most sheltered spots. But actually, plenty of sunny spells as well, particularly across southern parts of England into South Wales, the Midlands, seeing some bright weather first thing. Temperatures rising fairly quickly through the morning as well. There'll be a lot of cloud, especially towards the north, 1 or 2 showers for Northern Ireland, Northern England, but the most frequent showers by this stage will be across the north and the east of Scotland, where the thickest cloud will be, and we're going to see this cool breeze continuing from the north. And as the morning continues, we'll see further showers crop up here and there. Just about anywhere could get a shower, but the most frequent downpours will once again be across Scotland, northern and eastern England. Fewer showers in general compared to Monday, but still quite a number of them towards the east. In the west, that's where the best of the sunshine will be, highs here of 17 or 18 Celsius. Then through Tuesday evening, those showers continue for a time, but actually overnight it turns mostly dry with clear spells as a ridge of high pressure builds in. That'll lead to a fine day on Wednesday for many of us. Doesn't last though. More rain to come on Thursday, followed by showers on Friday.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:47. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Now at 4 o'clock, we'll hear from Rishi Sunak, who's been back on the campaign trail, desperately hoping people are forgiving him for his D-Day debacle. But before that, it's a massive week for football fans. There are just 4 days to go until Euro 2024 starts, with Scotland taking on the host nation Germany in the opening game. And today, the Prince of Wales has been with the England squad. Gareth Southgate teams are the favourites with the bookmakers to win the tournament. Well, our reporter Jack Carson is at England's training ground in Burton-on-Trent. Jack, God knows we could do the pick-me-up after that disastrous debacle against Iceland on Friday. Can the Prince give us that pick-me-up?
Well, he certainly tried it today, Martin. A rousing team talk as he met the 26 men off to Germany today. They've already left. We've seen them leave St George's Park here on the way to the airport as they head towards the European Championships with a lot of expectation on their shoulders. Prince William arrived here this morning, met Gareth Southgate, asked him, had a chat with him about preparations and how they were going, and then met with the players, presenting them with the shirts that they're going to be wearing over in Germany and wear for the first time against Serbia on Sunday. Now, he gave a bit of a speech. He told them that he wondered on the way here how he was going to, what he was going to say to them, how he was going to really bring them up in the first place. I mean, one of the things he said, he was on the school run. He asked his children how he might be able to do that. Prince Louis apparently suggested they should eat twice as much, so he didn't want to really pass maybe that advice on to the players, thinking they might be a bit fat and a bit too slow for the tournament. But he did say that one of the things he's always done is reflect, of course, upon his times when he's come to St George's Park in the past, the togetherness that he always seen, the unity that he's seen both before with the squad and now once again. He also told them to try and pick up on the inspirations that they've had in the past, telling them to look at your family, look at your friends, look at those memories that you've got and really use them to pump yourself up, because England know going into this tournament that they are one of the favourites. Of course, they will have to face some tough teams along the way. We could well face France before we get to the final, who, of course, are runners-up in the World Cup a couple of years ago. So it's not going to be an easy ride, but we know with the quality of the squad that we've got with Jude Bellingham, Harry Kane, just to name a couple, that he knows that England, and he told the team today that he said England has got a target on their back, but he says the whole country is going to be behind them. He didn't say exactly how he was going to be watching. He said there was media in the room. He didn't want to disclose how exactly he's going to be watching, but I can imagine there's quite a bit of excitement because we know how much of a football fan Prince William is. Of course, he's been president of the FA since 2006. He's regularly seen at Aston Villa in Birmingham with his son Prince George, watching the games there. So it was a very successful visit from the England squad point of view, but it's also been from the community aspect. Of course, we know how big the FA are within the community. There was a festival of football here with a load of school children that also saw the England team off. Gareth Southgate and Prince William went to see them before he carried on his duties for the rest of today.
Thank you, Jack Carson. England off to Euro 2024 now with royal approval. Thank you very much. Live from Burton-on-Trent. Now to the post-mortem into the death of TV doctor Michael Mosley, and police say he died of natural causes on the day he went missing on the Greek island of Symi. Let's cross live now to Athens and speak to Grigoris Leon, who's a forensic doctor. Thank you very much for joining us on the show, Mr. Leon. So it seems that Michael Mosley may, after all, have simply succumbed to the intense heat.
Yes, well, first of all, as you know, today is made also the post-mortem examination to the morgue. I think a day before was the examination of the scene that was found Mr. Mosley. So first of all, I want to say also as a doctor that I'm very sad for his loss, also because he's a colleague. But as we can see from the first signs of the post-mortem examination, as we know, is a natural death. But we have to wait also the laboratory exams, because they will do histology exams and also toxicology exams that will conclude all the forensic investigation. But I think that we can speak from now for probably a natural death. Well, is the only, I think, thing that we are waiting are the laboratory exams, because from the signs of the body, we excluded a natural death or a violent death.
Yeah, and there were no signs of foul play, no signs of a fall. And what makes it particularly challenging, Grigoris Leon, is that Mr. Mosley was so close to a beach resort when he passed.
Well, you're right, and I have to add also that I'm really surprised as a doctor, because I know he's a doctor too. And he hasn't had his mobile phone, for example. That was very important. If you decide to an island like this, that is a very nice island, but with the hot weather, very high temperatures, and also with a lot of rocks and pathways between rocks, means that we have a very hard conditions in certain points. So I'm very sorry that he hasn't got, for example, his mobile phone, and I think that he hasn't got even a small bottle of water that will be probably useful for a person that decides to make a a walk of 1 hour or more even to these conditions. I think that the conditions played a very important role for his death. And even if you are a healthy person, I think that you suffer after a walk like this. But in this case, for sure, the forensic pathologist will check also the medical record of Mr. Mosley. And I think that we will have a certain cause of death very soon.
OK, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. Gregorios Leon, a forensic doctor there live from Athens. Now, all the major parties have been out and about today and they're taking lumps out of each other. This election campaign is really hotting up. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. National weather with Aidan McGibbon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Showers at first during the rest of today, but they will tend to ease inland later with clear skies overnight, leading to a chilly feel by the start of tomorrow. We've got a northerly airflow across the UK at the moment. Low pressure moving into the continent, leaving behind a lot of cloud and quite frequent showers, especially for the north and the east of the UK. But inland, those showers will tend to ease overnight. Still the odd one going, but many places will turn drier with clear spells. And out of the breeze overnight, under those clear skies, temperatures in some spots will fall into the mid-single figures, perhaps even a touch of grass frost first thing Tuesday in the most sheltered spots. But actually, plenty of sunny spells as well, particularly across southern parts of England into South Wales, the Midlands, seeing some bright weather first thing. Temperatures rising fairly quickly through the morning as well. There'll be a lot of cloud, especially towards the north, 1 or 2 showers for Northern Ireland, Northern England, but the most frequent showers by this stage will be across the north and the east of Scotland, where the thickest cloud will be, and we're going to see this cool breeze continuing from the north. And as the morning continues, we'll see further showers crop up here and there. Just about anywhere could get a shower, but the most frequent downpours will once again be across Scotland, northern and eastern England. Fewer showers in general compared to Monday, but still quite a number of them towards the east. In the west, that's where the best of the sunshine will be. Highs here of 17 or 18 Celsius. Then through Tuesday evening, those showers continue for a time, but actually overnight it turns mostly dry with clear spells as a ridge of high pressure builds in. That'll lead to a fine day on Wednesday for many of us. Doesn't last though. More rain to come on Thursday, followed by showers on Friday.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon. Hello again. I'm Jules Buckley. Newcastle. Firstly, the Stamfordham Road eastbound, the A167, still closed from Binswood Avenue to Silver Lonin. A collision continues to be investigated. Bootle, if you're heading towards Merseyside, the Knowsley Road, the A566. It's Shepperton Balfour Road and Hornby Boulevard and queuing. There's a gas leak there. If you're heading for the M1 southbound before Bedford, Junction 13, a 2-mile queue, though all the lanes are back open. That follows a collision from earlier on today. Now in Surrey, the Hindhead Tunnel, the A3 still queuing, though an earlier police incident has now been dealt with, but still seen a legacy of queues, and still queuing either side of the M5 in Somerset, not up by an earlier collision northbound near to Clevedon at 20. There's also fuel spillage there as well, so currently queuing both north and southbound on the M5. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster, all across the UK. Today, there's just 24 days to go until the general election, and Rishi Sunak has said he won't quit after his D-Day debacle. Labour want free breakfast for school kids, Reform want to slash taxes, and the Liberal Democrats, well, they want to rejoin the single market. We'll have all the latest from the rollercoaster ride of the campaign trail. And the results are in for the European Union elections, and we've seen an historic backlash against Brussels with a surge in votes for parties who want stricter immigration controls and kickbacks against net zero taxes. And with snap general elections called in France, Belgium and even possibly in Germany, is the writing on the wall for the European Union? And 10 years on from the untimely death of the legend Rick Mayall, we look back on the staggering work and the legacy of an irreplaceable, much-missed comedy icon. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. So Rishi, after his D-Day debacle, he's come out of his bunker. He's back on the front line. But is it time for him to raise the white flag? Is it D-Day for him? Has he had his chips? And also those European elections last night, an astonishing pushback, the most dramatic reset of European Union political history in its entire conception since it came to birth. Is the writing on the wall for Brussels? Emmanuel Macron has called a snap election. In France, it's wiped 60 billion euros of the value of the Paris Stock Exchange in one day alone, and the euro has crashed. A continent in freefall, a political climate disaster. What do you think? Is it time to get rid of the European Union? Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. But before all of that, it's your headlines, and here's Polly Middlehurst.
Martin, thank you, and good afternoon to you. Well, the top story from the GB Newsroom this afternoon is that 2 boys have become the youngest convicted murderers in Britain since Robert Thompson and John Venables, both aged 11 at the time, were found guilty of killing 2-year-old James Bulger back in 1993. The 12-year-olds in this instance were found guilty of murdering a man with a machete in a Wolverhampton park. They stabbed 19-year-old Sean Sisahai in November last year. The jury's decision to convict was unanimous. Sean Sisahai's parents said they'll never be able to get over the loss of their beloved son. Well, in other news today, the Prime Minister says he never considered quitting despite heavy criticism over his early departure from D-Day commemorations in Normandy last week. Rishi Sunak is promising to carry on until the last day of this campaign. It comes after the Prime Minister kept a low profile over the weekend, avoiding questions from reporters as rumours increased that he may step down. But now he's vowing he won't stop fighting for the future of the country.
I'm energised about the vision that we're putting forward for the country. Right, this campaign is only not even halfway through yet, and I'm finding an enormous amount of support for the policies that we're putting on the table, whether it's a modern form of national service, the triple lock, plus 100,000 new apprenticeships, continuing to cut taxes for people. These are all things that people want to see. I believe I've got the right plan for the country. We're the only party willing to take bold action. That's how we deliver a secure future, and I'm going to keep taking that message to as many people as possible between now and polling day.
Well, the Prime Minister is promising to recruit 8,000 neighbourhood police officers in England and Wales when the Tories are elected. If the Tories are elected, of course. Rishi Sunak says the plan would be funded in part by hiking visa fees and increasing the immigration health surcharge for overseas students. However, Labour's calling that another empty promise from a desperate Conservative party. Policing Minister Chris Philp says the Tories aim to build on their recent recruitment.
We are pledging to recruit another 8,000 police officers on top of the record numbers we've already got. Those extra 8,000 officers will be dedicated to neighbourhood policing. That means patrolling your local high street, patrolling the areas where you and me and your listeners and viewers live, visibly patrolling, catching criminals, preventing crime, reassuring the public.
Chris Philp. Meanwhile, Labour's promising to deliver free breakfast clubs in schools as part of a new childcare plan they say could save parents over £400 a year. They're also claiming it'll cut almost 500,000 days of school absences. For parents who already pay for before-school childcare, Labour's funded breakfast clubs, they say, could cut the cost by up to £50 a week, delivering almost £2,000 worth across a school year. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, insisting the policy will help working parents.
As any parent with young children will tell you, childcare and nursery places are really essential. They're so good for children in their development and making sure that when they arrive at primary school they've got the skills that they need. Really good for parents and carers because they can get back into the labour market, so very good also for the economy. And our scheme is fully funded, fully costed, but also fully planned, so it'll be wrapped around primary schools.
Sir Keir Starmer. Now, the Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davy, has launched his party's manifesto with a pledge to put health and care at the heart of their campaign. Sir Ed spoke about his own experiences caring for his mother who died of Hodgkin's lymphoma. The party leader said his experience and the experiences of other carers are exhausting sometimes, but also full of love.
And these are the experiences that we must bring out of the shadows. Because the truth is that unless we properly value care, unless we properly support carers, we will never be able to fix the crisis in our NHS or get our economy back on track.
It's Ed Davy. Well, Reform UK has set out its economic policy for the election campaign. Plans include raising the personal tax threshold to £20,000, abolishing IR35 regulations for sole traders and raising the VAT threshold for small businesses to £150,000. Now, as you've been hearing this afternoon on GB News, local Greek media reports are suggesting that Dr. Mayall Mosley, the TV nutritionist, died from natural causes after his body was found on a remote island. The 67-year-old went missing after leaving his wife and friends on the island of Symi on Wednesday. He appears to have taken the wrong route back to his hotel and collapsed where he couldn't easily be seen by emergency search and rescue teams. And finally, the Prince of Wales has wished the England football squad good luck for their Euro 2024 bid. During a visit to Burton-on-Trent today, Prince William shared advice from little Prince Louis, who says you should eat twice as much during a tournament. The president of the FA also presented shirts to the 26 players taking part in the event. The Euros kicking off this Friday, with Scotland taking on Germany in Munich. That's the news. For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts. Scan the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Polly. So to our top story this hour. The parents of Sean Caesar High have spoken about the horrific machete attack by two 12-year-old boys which killed their 19-year-old son in Wolverhampton last November. And they say they will never get over the tragic loss of their beloved son. His two attackers have become the youngest convicted murderers in the UK since the killers of James Bulger in 1993. And I'm joined now by our Home and Security editor, Mark White, who is across this story. Mark, this case is so horrific. It makes you ask deep, deep questions about the capability of children, the legal framework around them. And Mark, the conversation is sure to go into the realms of should these children be identified for this barbaric attack?
Yes, and of course, a key point, why or how on earth did 12-year-old boys get hold of a machete, which apparently they used to carry about with them. They were seen carrying this machete on multiple occasions. Now, this incident happened at a park and playing fields in Wolverhampton in November of last year. The victim, 19-year-old Sean Caesar High, had been with friends in this park as well. He lived in Birmingham. He was not known to the two 12-year-olds who went on to attack him. A friend of Mr. Caesar High has said that when they were attacked by the boys, they ran, but he looked back, he said, to see Mr. Caesar High fall over, and the boys then start attacking him, kicking him, punching him, and then stabbing him as well with the machete. Both these boys initially failed to give any kind of information and cooperate with the police, but they did give evidence in the murder trial, a month-long trial at Nottingham Crown Court, and both boys blamed each other for wielding the fatal blow. As far as the jury was concerned, though, they reached a unanimous verdicts on both of these 12-year-olds, finding them guilty of murder. And West Midlands Police, who carried out this murder investigation, have interviewed the family of Mr. Caesar High, the parents, who gave really a heart-wrenching interview, and they put out on the West Midlands Police website part of that interview. Let's take a look.
In the living room, and her phone rang, then she answered the call and she started to cry. I asked her what happened. She said Sean got stabbed. I said, what happened? She started to cry, she cannot talk. Take the phone from her. I asked him, I said, what happened to Sean? He said, Sean got stabbed. I said, Sean is okay? He said, no, Sean passed away.
She keeps saying that now soon she will graduate next 2 years from now. She expects her brother to be there. She crying that she don't have a brother anymore, and that affects us a lot when she say things like that. And she keep crying. It's hard on her right now. It's very hard on her.
And the parents, originally from Anguilla in the Caribbean, say understandably they will never get over the loss of their son, and they have one fundamental question from this, which is how on earth these two 12-year-old boys ever came into the possession of a machete, how they were allowed to keep hold of this machete and go on, of course, to murder this 19-year-old victim. We're told by the police and prosecutors during the trial that one of the boys actually posed with that machete, wearing a mask, just hours before going on to carry out this murder. Both of these 12-year-old boys will be sentenced, we're told, sometime in July. And then there is that very pertinent question about whether these two 12-year-olds should be named. They are the youngest murderers since John Venables and Robert Thompson were named as the 11-year-old murderers of James Bulger back in 1993 in Liverpool. So it's possible that the trial judge in this particular case could decide to name the two 12-year-old boys.
And Mark, there is such a huge public interest in cases like this. Knife crime seems to be an unstoppable cancer. Machetes, 12-year-olds, the report found it was without reason or legal authority. The forces of the blows were such, too graphic to even go into on television, but it doesn't sound like an attack by children. It sounds like a savage attack by adults. With all of that in mind, Mark, do you think that threshold may be breached and there is that degree of public interest that these children perhaps should be named?
It's certainly possible. We're living in different times, of course, where, authorities take into consideration the impact on offenders as well as, of course, the victims. Back in 1993, there was such UK-wide but international attention because of the horrific nature of the murder of young James Bulger, just 2 years old at the time that he was murdered, that trial judge did take the decision to name both Robert Thompson and John Venables as his killers. So it's certainly possible that they could be named, but just as possible that the trial judge will decide to keep them anonymous going forward.
OK, thank you, Mark White, for joining us. A very troubling case, the murder of Sean Caesar High. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, earlier today, Shadow Paymaster General Jonathan Ashworth hosted a press conference where he sought to debunk what he called the Conservatives' desperate claim that they can shave £12 billion from the benefits bill. Our political correspondent Olivia Utley spoke with Jonathan Ashworth earlier today, and she joins me now. Olivia, welcome to the show. So the Labour Party very much getting on a front foot after that £2,000 additional tax bill claim last week at the televised debate. They're very much fighting back in very aggressive form. Tell us more.
Well, absolutely. As Jonathan Ashworth said at the beginning of his speech here in this building behind me, normally the Labour Party would sit down with journalists the day after the Conservative Manifesto is launched, go through all the figures and try and debunk them. Well, the Conservative Manifesto isn't even going to be launched until tomorrow, and yet already we've heard from Jonathan Ashworth on exactly why, in Labour's view, the Conservatives' manifesto will not work. The refrain of Jonathan Ashworth's speech, which he must have said over 20 times over the course of about 20 minutes, was the money is not there. For the Conservatives, the money is not there. And the area where he went hardest was this claim from Rishi Sunak that it will be possible to save £12 billion by changing the way that welfare is given out to try and crack down on the number of people claiming benefits for long-term sickness. Now, we know that is a huge, huge problem in the UK economy. The number of people out of work because of long-term sickness has doubled since 2013, and there are currently 9 million people who are now economically inactive. That means they're neither looking for work nor in work. Now, Rishi Sunak reckons he can change that. Jonathan Ashworth says Sunak can't change that. And why is Ashworth saying that? Well, he points out that in the time that Rishi Sunak has been Prime Minister, actually overpayment for benefits because of fraud has increased by £1 million. So Ashworth's argument isn't that the policy isn't worth doing, it's simply that Rishi Sunak isn't the man to do it. Labour alleges that over that time, Rishi Sunak has just allowed this benefits bubble to swell and swell. Now, that's quite an interesting message from a Labour Paymaster General. He's not saying that benefits should be kept. He's not saying that they should be frozen as they are. He is just saying that Rishi Sunak isn't able to cut them in the way that he's suggesting they can. It'll be really, really interesting to see what the Labour manifesto says about benefits when it's launched on Thursday. Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer have both been absolutely clear again and again, and Ashworth said it again today, that the three main taxes will not be raised in that Labour manifesto. So that's national insurance, income tax and VAT. Well, that's obviously left a lot of people asking, where is Labour going to find the money to fulfil all of its really pretty sizable spending commitments that it's already made? Could it possibly be that a Labour government is going to end up cutting benefits like Rishi Sunak would like to see?
Yeah, and Olivia Utley, an astonishing figure brandished by Jonathan Ashworth earlier on the show, around about an hour ago. He claimed Rishi Sunak has lost £1 million to benefit fraud every single hour that he's been the Prime Minister. The gloves are certainly off on this campaign trail. Olivia Utley, thank you for joining us on the show. Now, moving on, the Liberal Democrats have launched the first manifesto of this general election campaign, with leader Sir Ed Davy pledging to save the NHS and take Britain back into the European Union's single market.
Fixing our broken relationship with Europe. Rebuilding the ties of trade and friendship. Boosting our economy and restoring Britain's role on the world stage.
And meanwhile, Rishi Sunak came out of his bunker and struck a defiant tone as he spoke to the media for the first time since Friday this morning, dismissing speculation he considered resigning and insisting he remains focused on the general election campaign.
No, of course not. I'm energised about the vision that we're putting forward for the country. Right, this campaign is only not even halfway through yet, and I'm finding an enormous amount of support for the policies that we're putting on the table, whether it's a modern form of national service, the triple lock, plus 100,000 new apprenticeships, continuing to cut taxes for people. These are all things that people want to see. I believe I've got the right plan for the country. We're the only party willing to take bold action. That's how we deliver a secure future, and I'm going to keep taking that message to as many people as possible between now and polling day.
And at a Reform UK campaign event in London earlier today, Nigel Farage gave a very stark assessment of the current state of the British economy.
We are skint, and it's getting worse. And at some point in time, we may even have trouble issuing gilts, issuing government bonds, unless the market sees we've got some solutions. And that is why the only way out is growth. And I think what Richard's just set out in particular, putting up the tax threshold to £20,000 would be a very, very big step in the right direction.
So are we skint, and can we fight our way out of it? Well, I'll be joined by a government minister later this hour to put those questions directly to him. And we'll have lots more on the election, of course, at 5 o'clock. And there's plenty of coverage on our website, gbnews.com, and you've helped to make it the fastest growing national news website in the country. Now, our brand new giveaway could make your summer extra special, as there's a ton of tech to be won, days out on us, and £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. Do you fancy the chance to win the lot of it? Well, here's how it all could be yours.
We've got summer sewn up with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. Fun in the sun could be on us. For a chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text WIN to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
And coming up, the cosy European Union establishment has been rocked by the outcome of the EU elections because Eurosceptic parties have made huge gains across the continent. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
How prevalent is it in those with darker skin, like me?
That's a great question, and it's one that we get a lot. So your skin tone does affect your risk of skin cancer. People at the most risk are people with lighter skin tones, so light-coloured hair and eyes as well, lots of moles and freckles, a history of sunburn or a family history of skin cancer. But people with darker skin tones can still burn and can still get skin cancer. anybody can get skin cancer. So I would encourage everybody, regardless of your ethnicity or your skin tone, to think really seriously about taking care when it's sunny. That myth that you've mentioned that black people can't get skin cancer is really prevalent, and that's something I want to dispel right now immediately. Because more black people think maybe they can't get skin cancer, that might mean that when they spot something unusual for them, they're less likely to go to the doctor and they're diagnosed later. And when you're diagnosed later, your outcomes do tend to be worse.
So the figures are disturbing that more people are getting skin cancer. But what about outcomes? I mean, if you do get skin cancer, what are your prospects?
So yeah, like you say, this research is a mixed picture. We're seeing incidence, so the number of new cases going up, which is not good news. But there is some good news in that mortality, so whether you're going to die or not, is actually going down. And we think that's partly due to early diagnosis, which I just mentioned is so important. But also research has led to better and kinder treatments, which mean the outcomes are likely to be better. So now if you're diagnosed at the earliest stage, stage 1, with melanoma, actually around 9 in 10 people will survive their disease for 5 years or more.
The People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 4:25. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, to the most significant night in European politics since we voted to leave the European Union. And the cosy Euro establishment is reeling after voters gave them a right good kicking. And the result was so bad for the Belgian government that the country's Prime Minister has resigned. And after French President Emmanuel Macron's party suffered major losses, he called a snap election, a decision that's been branded an extraordinary gamble and knocked 60 billion euros off the value of the Paris Stock Exchange this morning alone. Well, let's now speak with the head of policy at MCC Brussels, Jacob Reynolds. Jacob, welcome to the show. It's fair to say that the European Union has a massive bloody nose in Brussels the morning after the night before, an astonishing reset of the political bloc. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, as you've noticed, a number of countries have delivered kind of strong results for the right or for populist parties. And when you tally those up, a few places have been very extraordinary, as you say, like in France. But the kind of bigger picture is that tallied up across the continent, it represents a real shift, perhaps in the makeup of the European Parliament. The kind of one of the slightly populist groups in the European Parliament is set to become the third biggest group, it looks like. And basically the story is that the populist and the anti kind of establishment EU narrative is really beginning to chip away at the cosy consensus that dominates in Brussels.
And Jacob, what was extraordinary, as well as issues motivating voters in countries such as Netherlands, such as Sweden, such as France, Spain, was border control, taking back control of borders, reminiscent of Brexit, and also a disastrous night for the Greens across the entire 27 member states. Jacob, it seems the public, when they're given the chance to vote on net zero policies, they're also pushing back on those.
Yeah, the story on the Greens is actually really, really important. And in many countries, and especially in Germany, the Greens have received kind of really, really bad results. And I think that's the only way to explain it is that we've had, since the so-called Green Wave that made up the last European Parliament, we've had years and years of these pro-net zero, Green New Deal policies. And people, as we can see from the farmers' protests or from people's energy bills, once these policies kind of come into contact with reality, people realize what they mean for their lives, what they mean for their pockets. And we've seen a rejection in many parts of Europe of these green policies. On immigration, certainly a rejection, certainly in France and in other places, but this is such a cornerstone of EU policies that it's going to be the European right really needs to kind of get its arguments and its act together if they really want to continue the challenge on immigration.
And there's been an extraordinary rising up of young voters. The 18 to 24-year-olds across many of the nations are increasingly voting with the political right, Jacob. And that's because in France, in Denmark, in Holland, they're tying immigration into affordable housing and quality of life. And it's working. In Britain, young people tend to vote for the left, but we've seen a huge shift with the younger voters, haven't we?
Yeah, and I mean, to take a story from Germany where everybody, and especially the European political elite, was really excited because Germany lowered the voting age and they expected that young people are just kind of destined to vote for green or pro-immigration policies. But actually, the young people in Germany have really voted, it seems, from the results for the AfD. And as you note, in France, I mean, the Le Pen's party, the National Rally, have got an incredible narrative that's really bringing in lots of younger voters, lots of people that in the UK, as you say, don't seem to kind of understand the narrative yet around or haven't had good arguments made about immigration, etc. But in France, they're doing a tremendous job there. And a lot of parties across the continent could really learn from what they've done in turning the National Rally into a really attractive party for young people to vote for.
And Jacob, Emmanuel Macron is now betting the house, or in his case, betting Le Chateau on this snap election. Do you think he's going to make it, or could that also spectacularly backfire?
Yeah, it's a hard one to call, but it seems that there's a kind of mix of both. I mean, he suffered such a crushing result that he had to do something, but there also seems to be a touch of kind of classic Macron arrogance in this, thinking that maybe he's got a roll of the dice left yet. There is also people are saying that they kind of want to almost put the National Rally into a position of power in the hope of discrediting them, but that seems to me to be, at the very least, a wild gamble, and one that could well backfire on Macron, because we see how wide the dissatisfaction is with Macron and his kind of pro-EU integrationist policies.
An extraordinary night, an extraordinary weekend in European politics. Thank you so much for joining us, giving your expert insight. Jacob Reynolds, Head of Policy at MCC Brussels. And the spirit of Brexit is burning on. Now, there's lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, and I'll be joined by a Tory minister at around 5:15. But first, it's time for your latest news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
The top story this hour, 2 boys have become the youngest convicted murderers in Britain since the killing of 2-year-old James Bulger in 1993. The 12-year-olds were found guilty of murdering a man with a machete in a Wolverhampton park. They stabbed 19-year-old Sean Caesar in November last year. The jury's decision to convict was unanimous. His parents have said they'll never be able to get over the loss of their son. The Prime Minister says he never considered quitting despite heavy criticism over his early departure from D-Day commemorations in Normandy last week. It comes after the PM kept a low profile over the weekend, avoiding questions as rumours increased he may step down. And the Prime Minister's promised to recruit 8,000 neighbourhood police officers in England and Wales if the Tories are re-elected. Rishi Sunak says the plan would be funded in part by hiking visa fees and increasing the immigration health surcharge for overseas students. However, Labour's calling it another empty promise from a desperate Conservative party. And Labour's promising to deliver free breakfast clubs in schools, part of a new childcare plan they say will save parents £400 a year. They're also claiming it'll cut almost 500,000 days of school absences. And for parents who already pay before school childcare, Labour's funded breakfast clubs, they say, could cut the cost by up to £50 a week. And the Liberal Democrat leader, Ed Davy, has launched his party's Manifesto campaign with a pledge to put health and care at the heart of his campaign. He spoke about growing up caring for his mother and his father, who were ill from cancer. The party leader said the experiences of carers are exhausting sometimes, but also full of love. And Reform UK has set out its economic policy for the election campaign. Plans include raising personal tax threshold allowances to £20,000, abolishing IR35 legislation for sole traders and raising the VAT threshold for small businesses to £150,000. And local media in Greece report that Dr. Mayall Mosley, the TV nutritionist, died from natural causes. After his body was found on a Greek island, he went missing after leaving his wife and friends on Wednesday. He appeared to have taken the wrong route back home and collapsed where he couldn't easily be seen by search teams. Those are the headlines. Sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Polly, and thanks to all of you who've got in touch so far this afternoon. I'll go through some of your messages after the break. Now, if you want to have your say on the big stories of the day, then here's Bev Turner with all of the details.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family. Simply go to gbnews.com/your say.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon. Hello again. I'm Jules Buckley. Let's go to Lincolnshire, heading towards the west of Hull. The northbound side of the Humber Bridge, the A15, is queuing. There's been a collision up towards the Humberfield roundabout, so that is struggling. The A17 in the county too, between Falsdyke and the A16 Sutterton roundabout. Now that is blocked and queuing both ways. There's been a collision there. Now the earlier bump in Somerset on the M5 still causing queues either side of Clevedon at 20. It was northbound, but it's still slow in both directions. In Plymouth, the westbound side of Coburg Street, the A374 shut between the University and the North Cross roundabout. That's due to a collision. And the Newton Stewart bypass in Tyrone, the A5 still shut between Strabane Road and Plumbridge Road and queuing. It's all due to an earlier lorry fire. Still seeing delays in both directions. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is about the Biden administration kind of resisting calls from Harry's lawyers whether or not this ongoing thing about releasing his visa records over the alleged, in Spare, he admitted to taking, remember his memoir Spare? He admitted to taking cocaine, marijuana and magic mushrooms. And a lot of people are saying, was he honest and truthful in his application, in his visa application? You have to say, have you taken drugs? He said no, and then in Spare he said yes. So I think this is absolutely fascinating. They're saying they can't release these records because there is a stigma attached to law enforcement records. Yes, there's a stigma attached to that, but then don't say... everybody else, if you write yes on a visa application, you will be chucked out of the United States. You will be denied entry. So I think this is fascinating that on this issue of whether there is a stigma for Harry or not, he can have his law enforcement records not released into the public domain.
The bottom line is, do we want him back?
So what's interesting is it seems to be becoming a political dividing line in the States because Biden is the administration trying to do Harry a favour by keeping them under wraps, but Trump has promised that he will, the file will be made public if he wins again.
Trump's been very strong on this. He said, if Harry lied, then he's out.
The one thing about America is their politicians make ours look sane. Which is saying something.
I'm slightly confused about this whole story because, OK, sure, Prince Harry has said this. How many pop stars, rock stars, movie stars, like every
the difference is, well, I don't think it's just a British. I think millions of Brits, to be fair to them, lie on the form every year. Millions of people from around the world lie on the form every year. Not, of course,
I'm not going to name any pop star specifically, but I would be mightily surprised if any hadn't indulged in what...
Yes, but of course they haven't given written evidence in their biography that they have, and that's the difference.
Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that. Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now, more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Welcome back. It's 4:37 and loads of you have been getting in touch, and let's read out a few of your says before we get stuck into the UK elections. On the topic of the two 12-year-olds convicted of murdering a 19-year-old boy with a machete, Adrian says this: as Nigel Farage said, stop and search needs to be forefront in knife crime. Take these people and these knives off of our streets. On the topic of manifestos, came out today. Lib Dems first with their manifesto. They want to rejoin the European Union, they said, or they want to rejoin the common market. And Citizen Jones says this: the Lib Dems manifesto is like turkeys voting for Christmas. Seems a bit harsh. But on the topic of Labour's announcement today, Labour majoring on education, free breakfasts at schools, and also more nursery places for children. Janice says this: I keep hearing our leaders speak about offering nursery places or free breakfasts for kids, but these are all short-term policies. To really help people, they should be finding ways of helping them stay at home and look after their own children. Children usually thrive better being looked after and loved by their own parents. So, Janice, that flies in the face of the Labour Party theory, which is all about getting mums back into the workplace and not being at home. Alex adds this: what effects will the provision of free childcare have on the labour market? Does the Labour Party really think that the shortages in the workforce will be filled by Monday 9 to 5ers, Monday to Friday? Will there be due diligence, or is it just going to be childcare for shopping trips and brunches? Thanks for those opinions. There'll be loads more before the end of the show. Let's get more back now on the general election campaign, with Labour announcing today that they provide 100,000 nursery places and fund 6,500 new teachers with their VAT policy. This comes after Shadow Attorney General Emily Thornberry admitted on the Camilla Tominey show yesterday that class sizes may go up if there's an influx of children into state schools. Well, joining me now to discuss this and all of the latest from the general election campaign is a Labour Party activist, Susie Stride. Susie, welcome to the show. Education, education, education. It's feeling even more like 1997 all over again. Let's start with this policy of free breakfasts in schools. You and I both know, Susie, there's no such thing as a free lunch, let alone a free breakfast. What on earth is this going to cost? When Sadiq Khan brought free school lunches into London, that's £140 million a year. So where is the money coming from for free breakfast for every child in Britain?
I mean, I think the Labour Party have made it quite clear that they're going to end tax breaks on private schools and they're going to clamp down on tax evasion. And actually, interestingly, I work in schools. This is my day job. I'm not political by background. And actually, I can hear what some of your viewers are saying. Ultimately, a breakfast club is not going to change a child's life. But it is the small things that make a difference. And when I had my child, I couldn't afford to go back to work. And this is replicated across the country, where parents, mums and dads, just decisions are made, and it's very difficult because the cost of childcare has rocketed, and ultimately that is not good for the economy and that is not good for families. And actually, I would argue with one of your viewers, I'm not sure, as a mum, I think it was really healthy that I went back to work early. And what I did was I went back one day, and then I also had my son who's downstairs with my mum, completely happy and thriving. And I think my sister always said happy mums equal happy children. So I think this is nuanced. And what I would say is we made it very clear we are costing every policy, and so I think that fear and that worry, I think that's coming from somewhere else, because we're making it very clear how we're paying for these policies.
I mean, my missus is a teacher. I struggled for many, many years putting all my cash into childcare. I get it. But isn't that a lifestyle choice? We choose to have children. How we take care of them should be the responsibility of the parents, not of the state. And if we have children, we should be able to afford to feed them. Of course, there are already free school meals in place for the neediest. We can all agree that's a good idea. But why should middle-class parents, affluent parents, why should every parent in Britain get free food for their children?
Look, you know, I live and work in Tower Hamlets. It's one of the most deprived areas in the country. I think it's a different story if your kid goes to Eton, because there's not going to be that problem, let's be honest. But we live in a country where the starting place of every child is not the same. And because of that, and because we want all children to thrive, whatever their background, that means that we do believe in certain types of intervention, whether that be a breakfast club. But I think the bigger announcement today is about childcare. That hits everyone. You know, my friends, whether they're lawyers or whether they're midwives or whether they're doctors, this hits everybody. And like I say, whether you're a Tory voter, a Labour voter, a Lib Dem voter, whatever voter, this is something that people are talking about because it's a big problem and it holds families back. And I would say it ends up having that detrimental impact upon, you know, whatever class background you are. So I think it is important. And I hear what you're saying about, you know, should people be paying for this or paying for that? But again, I think what makes us great as a country, we want everyone to thrive, no matter what their background. Should a child pay the cost of parents' wrong decisions, or should a child pay the cost because they live in a poorer area? You know, I know my answer on these things. I think the country's better when everyone thrives. And I just want to say that you look at the Scandinavian countries and they do better. And they do better because their childcare is better. So let's learn from these people.
Susie, I've been to Sweden. I've done a huge amount of work on stay-at-home dads, because stay-at-home dads get an absolute tiny amount of money. Dads aren't encouraged to be active, involved parents. But the problem we've got here, Susie, is that the base rate of tax in those countries, in Scandinavia, is 50% plus. It costs a huge amount of money to pay for all this stuff. And is that the Labour Party flashing their garter here? Such ambitious plans to care for every child in the country that inevitably has to mean hiking up taxes. There's no such thing as a free breakfast.
No, I mean, look, ultimately, you know, we've made it really, really clear. We are going to say to people that send their kids to private schools, there's not going to be that tax relief there. So we're going to make money from there. We're also going to clamp down on people that are evading tax. So I think, no, not at all. I'm saying we learn the ideas of how to do childcare. The way we fund it is clearly not going to look like those countries. We've made it very, very clear. I think if we were saying we're going to do this and you were then asking how are we going to fund it and we were scratching our heads saying, oh, we don't know. That's not what's going on here. We're making it very, very clear. There's not going to be that tax exemption for private schools. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And also, we're going to clamp down on tax evaders. And let's be honest, again, it doesn't matter what background you're from, people want to clamp down on people that are evading tax dodgers. Let's go after them. Great. You know, you'll struggle to meet anyone that doesn't agree with that. So I think we're making it very, very clear. And I think this fear about this tax bomb, I'm sorry, that is a 1980s joke, and there is no rational, logical basis for it, actually. And so I really think people need to stop going on about it. And I also would say that the last Labour government didn't do that. Blair didn't do that. Anyway.
Yeah, but Susie, look, I absolutely adore your passion. I get where you're coming from, and I'm all for parents. My missus is a TA, my mum was a school teacher her entire life. You know, I get it. But what I'm saying is this: you know, we are £2.8 trillion in debt. When Tony Blair came into power, the biscuit tin was full. Now the bread and honey, the milk is all gone. There's nothing there. All of these things have to be paid for. Why should hard-working taxpayers pay for middle-class kids to get breakfast? It doesn't add up.
Yeah, I mean, my question would be, do you think the Tories are going to do a better job? Because let's be honest, since 2010, what have they done to this economy? Have they grown the economy? No. You know, I'm just like, let's be honest here. It'd be great if they had a good record, but they do not have a good record. Infrastructure projects across this country. Liz Truss, what she's devastated people that have got mortgages. You know, good people, probably Tory voters. Can I just say something? Not hysterical. I ran for Parliament in Harlow, and this is 2011, 2015, and it was tough on the doors. Let me tell you, I was out in Milton Keynes, and I'm shocked, but not by the number of Tories that are saying, I am not voting Conservative. They are afraid of the Conservatives. They are afraid of what Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng did to this economy. And let's be honest, if me and you were talking rationally, we should be afraid. You know, what has gone on with mortgages? What has gone on in this economy? Has the economy thrived under the Tories in the last 10 years? No. Will it thrive under Rachel Reeves? Yes.
Okay, well, Don't forget those, Susie. We're in this pickle because of lockdowns, and that was a Tory policy fully backed up by Sir Keir Starmer. In fact, Sir Keir Starmer wanted longer lockdowns. He wanted them sooner, and he wanted them harder. That's why we're in this mess. The blame game needs to stop. You guys most likely will get your go soon. Listen, Susie Stride, you can't fault your enthusiasm. Great debate. Let's get you on again in the future. I absolutely adore that Labour Party.
Can I just say one last thing? I was going to say the economy was recovering. The economy was recovering in 2015, if you remember, and they cut off that recovery because they did not invest. They did, and their austerity plans and their cuts, they cut off the recovery. So I wouldn't say...
OK, Susie Stride, I need to stop you literally in your stride. Susie Stride, an absolute delight to have you on. Speak to you again soon. Now, Harry Dunn's mother has said she is unspeakably hurt after her son's killer refused to give live evidence on his inquest. We'll bring you all the latest after this.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Showers at first during the rest of today, but they will tend to ease inland later with clear skies overnight, leading to a chilly feel by the start of tomorrow. We've got a northerly airflow across the UK at the moment. Low pressure moving into the continent, leaving behind a lot of cloud and quite frequent showers, especially for the north and the east of the UK. But inland, those showers will tend to ease overnight. Still the odd one going, but many places will turn drier with clear spells. And out of the breeze overnight, under those clear skies, temperatures in some spots will fall into the mid-single figures, perhaps even a touch of grass frost first thing Tuesday in the most sheltered spots. But actually, plenty of sunny spells as well, particularly across southern parts of England into South Wales, the Midlands, seeing some bright weather first thing. Temperatures rising fairly quickly through the morning as well. There'll be a lot of cloud, especially towards the north, 1 or 2 showers for Northern Ireland, Northern England, but the most frequent showers by this stage will be across the north and the east of Scotland, where the thickest cloud will be, and we're going to see this cool breeze continuing from the north. And as the morning continues, we'll see further showers crop up here and there. Just about anywhere could get a shower, but the most frequent downpours will once again be across Scotland, northern and eastern England. Fewer showers in general compared to Monday, but still quite a number of them towards the east. In the west, that's where the best of the sunshine will be. Highs here of 17 or 18 Celsius. Then through Tuesday evening, those showers continue for a time, but actually overnight it turns mostly dry with clear spells as a ridge of high pressure builds in. That'll lead to a fine day on Wednesday for many of us. Doesn't last though. More rain to come on Thursday, followed by showers on Friday.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that. Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
GB News is Britain's election channel.
And when the big stories break, we're tackling them on Britain's newsroom. When we disagree, and we disagree a lot, it's even livelier than normal.
We don't disagree that much.
We do.
His comedy, though, is revolting. I knew her, unlike you.
That explains Beverly Turner's temperament.
It's a bit frosty in here, isn't it?
He'll have one of me one day.
For dartball practice. Britain's newsroom on GB News. Weekdays, 9:30 a.m.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to 4:51. Now, Harry Dunn's mother has said she is unspeakably hurt after her son's killer refused to give live evidence to his inquest. And Dunn, of course, died in August 2019 when his motorbike was hit by a car driven by a US government employee, Anne Sakulis. Our reporter Will Hollis is at the inquest in Northampton. Will, welcome to the show. A case that gripped the nation at the time. What's the latest today?
Yes, well, Harry Dunn's mother says that it is bitterly disappointing that her son's killer, Ansar Koulis, wouldn't even appear at his inquest via video link, let alone in person. She says that by choosing to hide in America this way, it is disrespectful to Harry. This is 5 years now since Harry Dunn died in 2019, and while the family did get justice in Ansar Koulis appearing at the Old Bailey in 2022 via video link to plead guilty to the charge of causing death by careless driving after knocking Harry Dunn from his motorcycle while she was driving on the wrong side of the road in Northampton. The family say that while they're not seeking justice anymore, they are still seeking answers as to why their son was killed. An inquest is, of course, not to attribute blame. It is to find out the facts, the circumstances surrounding someone's death. And as I say, the family has still been waiting for almost 5 years. And earlier this morning, the families chose to speak to journalists on the steps of the Northampton Coroner's Court.
We had to fight for 3.5 years to even get to the Old Bailey to get our form of justice done, and then to have to wait another 18 months after that for our inquest is just, I think, pretty much unheard of, you know, and we've had to fight to get the inquest done as well. You know, it's just been an ongoing battle for almost 5 years. We're tired, we're exhausted, and unfortunately we are still a little bit angry with the US government for making us wait this long, but we're here now. There are things that we need to learn, lessons that they need to learn as well, and we're jolly well determined to make sure that we do all we can to ensure that happens.
Yes, well, the family say they are deeply concerned that safety is being neglected around American air bases here in the United Kingdom. Today we've heard from the family and first responders, and tomorrow we will hear that written statement from Ansar Koulis.
Okay, thank you there, Will Hollis. That's from the inquest in Northampton. Thanks for joining us and giving us that update. Now, all the major parties have been out and about today, and they're taking lumps out of each other. The election campaign is really hotting up. First of all, Labour kicked off with education. Jonathan Ashworth steamed into the Tories, saying that the money's simply not there. Desperate, they're making up as they go along. Rishi Sunak came out of his bunker and finally spoke. We'll have all of the latest from the general election campaign trail. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel. Now it's your weather with Aidan Migamon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Showers at first during the rest of the day, but they will tend to ease inland later with clear skies overnight, leading to a chilly feel by the start of tomorrow. We've got a northerly airflow across the UK at the moment. Low pressure moving into the continent, leaving behind a lot of cloud and quite frequent showers, especially for the north and the east of the UK. But inland, those showers will tend to ease overnight. Still the odd one going, but many places will turn drier with clear spells. And out of the breeze overnight, under those clear skies, temperatures in some spots will fall into the mid-single figures, perhaps even a touch of grass frost first thing Tuesday in the most sheltered spots. But actually, plenty of sunny spells as well, particularly across southern parts of England into South Wales, the Midlands, seeing some bright weather first thing. Temperatures rising fairly quickly through the morning as well. There'll be a lot of cloud, especially towards the north, 1 or 2 showers for Northern Ireland, Northern England, but the most frequent showers by this stage will be across the north and the east of Scotland, where the thickest cloud will be, and we're going to see this cool breeze continuing from the north. And as the morning continues, we'll see further showers crop up here and there. Just about anywhere could get a shower, but the most frequent downpours will once again be across Scotland, northern and eastern England. Fewer showers in general compared to Monday, but still quite a number of them towards the east. In the west, that's where the best of the sunshine will be. Highs here of 17 or 18 Celsius. Then through Tuesday evening, those showers continue for a time, but actually overnight it turns mostly dry with clear spells as a ridge of high pressure builds in. That'll lead to a fine day on Wednesday for many of us. Doesn't last though. More rain to come on Thursday, followed by showers on Friday.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello again, good afternoon to you. I'm Jules Buckley. Let's go to Lincolnshire firstly. Problems for the A17 this afternoon. Now we're still blocked between Fosdyke and the Stutterton roundabout for the A16 in queuing. That's whilst a collision being dealt with. The long delays for the clockwise side of the QE2 bridge on the M25. Now 2 lanes out of 4 closed off for a breakdown. That's causing queues to back just after Romford at junction 29 clockwise. You're heading towards the M25 up to junction 6 on the northbound side of the M11. There's a breakdown, a lane shut away from Loughton at junction 5, that's slow going. And in Plymouth in Devon, Coburg Street, the westbound side of the A374, now that remains closed off. It's shut between the University and the North Cross roundabout in queuing. That's all due to a collision they're still being dealt with. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We're making this summer funner, with 3 incredible prizes to be won. First, a fantastic £15,000 in tax-free cash that you can spend on anything you like. Next, there's the latest iPhone 15 with a brand new set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at the UK attraction of your choice. The summer fun could be on us. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said stump. You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere. Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
A very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, we're going to hear from the parents of the 19-year-old boy killed in a horrific machete attack by 2 12-year-old boys, and they've become the youngest convicted murderers since the killers of Jamie Bulger were jailed. And there's just 24 days to go, beg your pardon, until the general election. And Rishi Sunak has said he won't quit after his D-Day debacle. Labour want free breakfast for all British school kids, and Reform want to slash your taxes. Meanwhile, the Liberal Democrats, well, they want to rejoin the single market. We'll have all the latest from the campaign trail, including a brand new interview with Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davy. And the results are in for the European Union elections, and we've seen an historic backlash against Brussels, with the surge in votes for parties who want stricter immigration controls and kicking back against net zero taxes. Now, with snap general elections called in France, Belgium and possibly even Germany, is the writing on the wall for the European Union. And 10 years on from the untimely death of Rick Mayall, we look back on the staggering work and legacy of an irreplaceable, much-missed comedy legend. And that's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have your company. Well, they say there's no such thing as a free lunch, but today the Labour Party promised free breakfast for every school child in Britain. What's this going to cost? Well, I'll be joined by Annalise Dodds in the studio later this hour, and I will ask her, because I know there's no such thing as a free lunch, do the Labour Party, let alone a free breakfast? And why should taxpayers have to pay for every single child in Britain to be fed at school? They're already free lunches for the most impoverished children, and rightly so. But is it really your duty to feed every child across the land? Get in touch the usual ways, send your opinions in, gbnews.com/your say. But before all of that, it's your headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Martin, thanks very much indeed, and good evening to you. Well, our top story from the GB newsroom is that 2 boys have become the youngest convicted murderers in Britain since the killing of 2-year-old James Bulger in 1993. The 12-year-olds were found guilty of murdering a man with a machete in a Wolverhampton park. They stabbed 19-year-old Sean Sahai in November last year. The jury's decision to convict was unanimous. The murdered man's parents say they'll never be able to get over the loss of their son.
I was outside in the living room and her phone rang. Then she answered the call and she started crying. I asked her what happened. She said Sean got stabbed. I said what happened? She started crying. She cannot talk.
The parents of Sean Sahai there. Now, in other news today, the Prime Minister says he never considered quitting, despite heavy criticism over his early departure from D-Day commemorations in Normandy last week. It comes after the Prime Minister kept a low profile over the weekend, avoiding questions from reporters. As rumours increased, he may step down. Well, now he's vowing he won't stop fighting for the future of the country.
I'm energised about the vision that we're putting forward for the country. Right, this campaign is only not even halfway through yet, and I'm finding an enormous amount of support for the policies that we're putting on the table, whether it's a modern form of national service, the triple lock, plus 100,000 new apprenticeships, continuing to cut taxes for people. These are all things that people want to see. I believe I've got the right plan for the country. We're the only party willing to take bold action. That's how we deliver a secure future, and I'm going to keep taking that message to as many people as possible between now and polling day.
Rishi Sunak, well, he's also promising to recruit 8,000 neighbourhood police officers in England and Wales if the Tories are re-elected. Rishi Sunak says the plan would be funded in part by hiking visa fees and increasing the immigration health surcharge for overseas students. Labour's calling that another empty promise from a desperate Conservative party. But the Policing Minister, Chris Philps, says the Tories aim to build on their recent recruitment programme.
We are pledging to recruit another 8,000 police officers on top of the record numbers we've already got. Those extra 8,000 officers will be dedicated to neighbourhood policing. That means patrolling your local high street, patrolling the areas where you and me and your listeners and viewers live, visibly patrolling, catching criminals, preventing crime, reassuring the public.
Well, Labour is promising to deliver free breakfast clubs for children in schools as part of their new childcare plan. They say will save parents over £400 annually. They're also claiming it'll cut almost 500,000 days of school absences. And for parents who already pay for before-school childcare, Labour says funded breakfast clubs could cut the cost by up to £50 a week. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, saying the policy will help get working parents back to work.
As any parent with young children will tell you, childcare and nursery places are really essential. They're so good for children in their development and making sure that when they arrive at primary school they've got the skills that they need. Really good for parents and carers because they can get back into the labour market, so very good also for the economy. And our scheme is fully funded, fully costed, but also fully planned, so it'll be wrapped around primary schools.
Sir Keir Starmer. Well, the Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davy, has launched his party's manifesto with a pledge to put health and care at the centre of the campaign. Sir Ed spoke about his own experience caring for his mother and grandmother at home before they died. And the party leader said his experience and the experiences of other carers are exhausting sometimes, but also full of love.
And these are the experiences that we must bring out of the shadows. Because the truth is that unless we properly value care, unless we properly support carers, we will never be able to fix the crisis in our NHS or get our economy back on track.
Meanwhile, Reform UK has been setting out its economic policy for the election campaign. Plans include raising the personal tax threshold to £20,000, abolishing IR35 legislation for sole traders and raising the VAT threshold for small businesses to £150,000. Now, police in Greece are saying TV nutritionist Dr. Mosley died from natural causes after his body was found following a 4-day search effort. The 67-year-old went missing after leaving his wife and friends on the island of Symi on Wednesday. He appears to have taken the wrong route home and collapsed where he couldn't be seen easily by search teams. And those are the latest news headlines. For the latest, do sign up to GB News Alerts. Scan the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Polly. Now we start this hour with our brand new interview with Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davy. He's told our political editor Chris Hope that he's held talks with European Union leaders about closer ties with Europe, but won't give a timeline on when the UK should join the single market. Well, let's have a listen to this astonishing interview.
Ed Davy, will you be Prime Minister on July the 5th?
When I took over the leadership of the Liberal Democrats in 2019, we'd had 3 really tough elections, and we lost our way a little bit. And my first speech, you may remember, I said we need to wake up and smell the coffee. And what I said I wanted to do was really listen to people, listen to their concerns, and make sure that when we got to this election, our policies responded to them. And that's one of the reasons why today, in the launch of our Fair Deal for Britain, we've talked about rescuing the health service. We've talked about the cost of living. We've talked about things like the sewage scandal. And I think more and more people are coming to our cause. You've heard me say that I think we can win lots of seats off Conservatives in the home counties, in the West Country and elsewhere. And I think we could be on a bit of a roller coaster ride here and do very well.
Ed Davy PM? Because Joe Swinton said so in 2019.
Well, what I think you should do in an election is not take the voters for granted. One of my criticisms of the Conservatives is that they've taken their own voters for granted. You know, people who've been voting Conservative all their lives feel really let down. They feel that Rishi Sunak and the Conservatives are totally out of touch. And so during this campaign, I'm not going to focus about what happens after the election. I'm going to focus on listening to people and explaining to people our policies and our ideas. And I think the more we do that, the more we will win people to our colours.
What is liberalism? What is it?
Oh, it's holding the very powerful to account and helping ordinary people be more powerful. Right. So make sure they've got the health services they need, make sure they can get a decent, affordable home, to make sure their children get an opportunity, to make sure that the water companies don't get away with pumping their filthy sewage. So liberalism is about making sure that the vast majority of people get a fair deal.
So this document, this manifesto is aimed at Labour voters or Tory voters, because it seems quite Labour votery, you know, lifting the two limit child benefit cap, championing human rights, free school meals for children, so it goes on, 0.7% of aid spending. This is aimed at Labour voters, right?
No, it's aimed at Liberal Democrat voters, people
who are they then? Yeah.
Well, they're going to come from all parts of the spectrum, and we're finding them on doorsteps, people who've previously voted Labour all their lives, like what we're saying, but actually people, this is a really big difference. I've never seen this in my political lifetime, lifelong Conservatives saying they're fed up with the Conservatives and they're going to vote Liberal Democrat. And in that policy document, our manifesto, there's lots of things that I think traditional Conservatives would like. Our focus on restoring proper community policing, for example. So there's
all burglaries investigated.
Exactly, tackling the burglaries, which under the Conservatives haven't been tackled. But let me give you other examples. Our economic policies. I mean, people used to think they could trust the Conservatives with their money. They can't anymore. They've massively increased taxes. Actually, in that document, we've got a capital gains tax cut for most people who.
Is that mentioned here? I can't see it here.
Well, you heard me, and I'll say it again.
It's not the document, though.
Well, it should be, because we've talked about capital gains tax reform.
Right.
And in that reform, about 2/3 of people who pay capital gains tax, and let's remember it's only 1% of the population who do, but 2/3 of them will either pay no more or pay less.
Yes.
It's only the multimillionaires and the billionaires who pay a higher tax rate. So I think that's just fair. I think the vast majority of Tory voters will like it. And let me give you another example. Take what we're saying on the British Army.
Yeah, 100,000.
We want to reverse the Conservative cuts to the British Army. I think that's the right thing to do.
So you're facing both Labour and the Tories, aren't you? You're kind of you're defined by your opponents each time, where you are in the country.
No, sorry, Christopher.
Is that grossly unfair to you?
No, you're doing that. I'm not. I'm saying here's some great, ambitious Liberal Democrat ideas. Come and read them. Come and talk to us about them, and hopefully you'll really like them. And not only that, we've got great candidates who'd be real fantastic champions for their communities.
Local champions is the idea, isn't it?
Yeah. And then national champions, right? So you champion your area in Westminster, but also you are part of the national debate.
Is it a wasted vote if you're not saying you can be Prime Minister? Is it a wasted vote to have local champions, not MPs who are in a big party that can run the country?
Listen, I think getting a great local champion in Westminster can make a massive difference for a family, a community. Huge examples. I mean, honestly, it's really interesting in the West Country where we had many MPs. People are saying they remember when they had a Liberal Democrat MP. They were visible. They helped them. They championed the area. They got things done. Okay. And one of the reasons why Conservative voters are switching to us in those traditional areas, from Cornwall and St Ives to Taunton and Yeovil and Wells and Dorset and so many places like that. People are switching to us because they say, you know what, when we had a Liberal Democrat MP, we actually saw them. They actually did stuff. They cared for us, and they won that back.
You do mention Brexit. Now, Brexit was a big debate in 2019. Of course, that's been and gone. But you do say you're a four-stage process to get to a single market entry. Is that this decade, if you have any control of power?
Well, it's difficult to say because the Conservatives have so poisoned Britain's relationship with our nearest neighbours in Europe that it's going to take quite a while to rebuild the trust.
Years? I mean, how? Well, give us a guide.
I genuinely don't know. I genuinely don't know, and I know you like me to say it's going to happen there, but I can't know, can I?
No.
Because we need to engage with them. We have a four-stage process. We couldn't be clearer about the things we'd like to do for that. One of the things we'd like to do is to get a better trade deal. I mean, the trade deal that Boris Johnson, the Conservatives, got has been a disaster.
It's being reviewed, of course, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's a chance to review it, and we can get a much better trade deal. I've spoken with European politicians who say, you know what, trade is in our mutual benefit. We don't
open all the horrors of. I say horrors, just the divisiveness of Brexit.
No, we don't want to do that. We absolutely don't want to do that, because it was for many people it was exhausting, and that's one of the reasons why we're being, I think, very practical, very realistic, taking a step-by-step approach. But I do genuinely think better relationships with your neighbours is a good thing.
So it's not a wasted vote for the Liberal Democrats?
I think it's a very powerful vote. I actually think it's the most powerful vote anyone can cast on the 4th of July.
OK, just finally here, you want a tax policy that recognises how high taxes have gone under the Tory party, but all you're committing to is raising the personal allowance, nothing else. On rates, they'll stay where they are, will they?
Yeah, well, we don't think taxes should go up. I mean, the Conservatives have put taxes up to record levels, and that's one of the reasons why we want to...
Thresholds will go up as well, will they?
Well, what we've said in the manifesto is we would like, as our first priority for tax cuts when resources allow, when the public finance allow, to take people out of tax. And people know that we did that before. And they know that the Conservatives have reversed that. So if you believe in helping low-paid out of tax, a Liberal Democrat vote is a good one. If you want to push more people into tax, vote Conservative.
So, Ed Davy, thank you for joining us today on GB News. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Ed Davy talking to our political editor, Chris Hope. And I'm now joined by Anthony Brown, who's the Minister for Aviation and the Future of Transport. Thanks for joining us, Anthony. Thanks for your patience of coming on the show. I know you've been on hold. Now, Ed Davy there is on the warpath. He's basically saying that they intend to win lots of seats off the Tories in the South East, the West Country and the South West. The Tory have taken your voters for granted. Is this the problem for you, Anthony Brown? Ed Davy is gunning for you in the blue wall. Nigel Farage is gunning for your votes in the red wall. That's a horrible pincer movement to be caught in.
Well, it is. But it's no different from last time. And the point about both Reform Party and the Lib Dems, all they will do, neither of them will form the government. I mean, Ed Davy didn't want to say it, but clearly he's not going to be Prime Minister on the 5th of July. And all you're going to have is a Conservative government led by Rishi Sunak or a Labour government led by Keir Starmer. And a vote for Reform or a vote for Lib Dems, all it's going to do is make it more likely that there's a Socialist government led by Keir Starmer. And that's what voters need to really make a choice about. Who do they want? This is a unique opportunity, once in a 5-year opportunity to choose the government of the country. And that's the decision they need to focus on. Because actually the details of the Lib Dem policies, it's a good debating point, and I'm sure you'll ask me about them, and I'm very interested to talk about the single market. But ultimately, it just doesn't matter because they're not going to be in government.
Don't you think, Mr. Brown, you need to do something a bit better than say, oh, it's going to be terrible if anybody else gets in? It'll be much, much worse. That may have worked in 2019. I took part in that election. Jeremy Corbyn was the Tories' 12th man. But is that going to work anymore? Rather than saying things can only get worse, how about some optimism? How about things can only get better?
Well, we have been offering a whole. You're right. Look, people vote about the future, and they vote, and it's. I'm certainly. I naturally suffer from optimism bias, and I like to sell good things. We have been in this during this election campaign. We have been coming out with a whole series of different policies that are about making Britain a better country. So today we had the announcement about 8,000 extra neighbourhood police officers, fully warranted officers. We had the announcement about defence, increasing defence spending by 25%. We had the announcement about not taxing state pensions, which is a real clear dividing line between Labour and Conservatives, because actually, remarkably, Labour didn't commit to this, and you'll end up with a situation where the government, a Labour government, would be giving out a state pension and then clawing some of it back in taxes. So anyway, we're making all these announcements. It is a very positive. It is ultimately a very positive agenda, and we want to bring taxes down. I mean, you're right, as Ed Davy said, that taxes are too high. We completely agree with that. We all know the reasons for it. We had the pandemic, we had the cost of living crisis. We spent nearly £500 billion supporting families and businesses, and I'm sure the other opposition parties would be the first to complain if we haven't spent that. But there is no magic money tree, and ultimately we do have to pay it back, and that's why taxes are at the level they are. I wish they weren't. I wish we absolutely need to get them down. We started getting them down in terms of national insurance. We've had 2 cuts on that. The manifesto is being published tomorrow. Who knows what else it will say? Beyond that, I've got to wait and see. But I know in the heart of the Conservative Party, we're as low tax as we can possibly be.
Okay, we've still got the highest taxes since World War II then, but can I get you on this point of rejoining the European Union, or at least rejoining the single market? It's an ironic thing, isn't it, that last night the election in the European Union has flung the European Union more back towards the political right, and Ed Davy, astonishingly, wants to rejoin that allegiance. But it's OK for us to kind of pick that policy apart. But undeniably, even though he probably doesn't have much power to do so, it probably will land well with those yellow wall, blue wall voters, won't it?
I don't know quite how it'll land, actually, because it's just announced it and I'll just be talking to people. But the rejoining the single market is the worst of both worlds, and it's you can have a debate about Brexit, and you have done endlessly, and you don't want to take that debate now. But the single market, that we will have to adopt all the rules of the EU without any say in what those rules are, and it's completely incompatible for a nation like the UK. Like financial services, for example, where I've got a lot of professional experience. I used to negotiate all the regulations, EU regulations, in the EU with the European Council and the Commission and the Parliament, that we just have to accept all those rules for our biggest sector, the world's biggest international financial centre, without being able to have any say over what those rules are. And as Mark Carney said and Andrew Bailey said previously, I'm the governors of the Bank of England, is that this could lead to financial instability, that actually our biggest sector, crucial for economic growth, but also huge assets there, we wouldn't be able to decide the rules under which the so-called prudential rules, which make sure banks are stable. It's completely unconscionable. And then lots of rules in all different markets where we operate, would end up in a situation where countries that don't necessarily have our very best interests in hand, commercial competitors, will be able to introduce rules that we'd have to abide by, and we would have no say over it. It just shows that the Lib Dems just haven't thought this through at all. And I'm sure when voters start thinking about it a little bit, basically being a vassal state, accepting rules you have no say on, then they would reject it absolutely wholeheartedly.
OK, we have to leave it there. Anthony Brown, who's the Minister for Aviation and the Future of Transport, thank you very much for joining us on GB News. And let's speak now with our political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, welcome to the show. So, a bit of a dark horse, Ed Davy. There you are, a political roller coaster, quite literally. You're at Thorpe Park, now via the medium of the paddleboard, the water slide, the bike, and now the roller coaster. Ed Davy is coming up on the inside. Could it be something of a dark horse and cause the Tories trouble in those seats?
Yes, hi Mark, welcome to Thorpe Park here. Ed Davy's gone off to another ride, actually, somewhere deep in the heart of all these rides here in Surrey. And yeah, we are in blue Tory country, and the Lib Dems are here planting their flags definitely on Tory turf. I mean, Anthony Brown is right to an extent that normally this document here, this Lib Dem document, this manifesto, it won't really mean anything in here is going to happen after the election, unless there's a coalition. And at that point, we look back at this document and work out where is the common ground between probably the Labour Party and the Liberal Democrats. Polls can narrow. We saw it happen in 2017 when the Tories were miles ahead. Then it was a hung parliament. A deal was done by Theresa May with the DUP. Back in 2010, again, another coalition was formed with the Liberal Democrats. So this is a wish list for the Liberal Democrats, nothing more than that. And when you ask Ed Davy idea, what's the point of it all? He says he wants to create local champions, maybe as many as 50 local champions who can fight for individual people, individual communities when they're elected. So yeah, but I think Ed Davy, he's having fun. He's at Thorpe Park, he's doing the rides. He wants to show there's fun in politics, but also a degree of seriousness. And the big story, I think, the big issue might be for viewers and listeners of GB News is if they get anywhere near power, they want to get a lot closer to the European Union. Maybe the single market where we take the rules, but we don't make them.
Brexit, the ultimate rollercoaster ride, and here we are once again talking about it. Chris Hope, always a delight to have you on the show, live there from Thorpe Park. Now, the parents of Sean C. Hahi have spoken about the horrific machete attack by two 12-year-old boys which killed their 19-year-old son in Wolverhampton last November. And they say they'll never get over the tragic loss of their beloved son. His two attackers have become the youngest convicted murderers in the UK since the killers of James Bulger in 1993. And our Home and Security editor, Mark White, is across this story. Mark, welcome to the show. A barbaric crime, one that's simply unimaginable, one committed by two 12-year-olds. Once again, Mark, it poses that huge question: should these children be identified?
Well, that's certainly something I think that the trial judge will have to take into consideration when she passes sentence, we think sometime in July. But you're right in saying that this was a horrific murder. It would be a murder that we would report on anyhow, but of course, much more notable for the fact that the two killers were just 12 years old and carrying a massive machete. This incident happened in November of last year, and during the murder trial at Nottingham Crown Court, the jury was shown some CCTV footage, and that CCTV footage showed the area in Wolverhampton and playing fields in the Wolverhampton area where late at night, and this is a train station obviously, where both the victim and the perpetrators were seen on that CCTV. Now, according to prosecutors, they say that the victim had done nothing to antagonise the defendants who had this machete with them, that one of the friends of the victim ran away when they were attacked, looked back to see Sean Seetha Hai falling over and being kicked and punched and then ultimately being stabbed repeatedly with this machete. A 20-centimetre fatal wound was inflicted on the back of the victim. That machete, we're told, had gone so far into the victim's chest cavity that it penetrated the heart and almost exited the other side of his chest. And he died just minutes after police and paramedics reached the scene. Well, West Midlands Police, who conducted this investigation, carried out an interview with the family, the parents of the victim. A really just difficult interview to listen to, but this is part of that video that the West Midlands Police have now published.
I was outside in the living room and her phone rang, then she answered the call and she started crying. I asked her what happened. She said Sean got stabbed. I said, what happened? She started crying, she cannot talk. Take the phone from her. I asked him, I said, what happened to Sean? He said, Sean got stabbed. I said, Sean is okay? He said, no, Sean passed away.
She keeps saying that now soon she will graduate next 2 years from now. She expects her brother to be there. She crying that she don't have a brother anymore, and that affects us a lot when she say things like that. And she keep crying. It's hard on her right now. It's very hard on her.
So yes, a devastating murder of a child that the parents of Sean Seetha Hai have had to come to terms with. And the pertinent questions you mentioned there about whether these two 12-year-olds will be named, that's certainly possible. But there's also the other question, of course, about how two 12-year-olds could have been in possession of a deadly weapon like a machete, and not just once. This was, according to witnesses during this trial, a regular occurrence where one or other of these boys would carry this weapon.
OK, thank you, Mark White, for updating us on a most harrowing case. Now, moving on to the most significant night in European politics since we voted to leave the European Union, and the cosy Euro establishment is reeling after voters gave them a kicking. The result was so bad for the Belgian government, the country's Prime Minister has resigned. And after French President Emmanuel Macron's party suffered major losses, he called a snap election, a decision that's been branded an extraordinary gamble and one that wiped 60 billion euros off the value of the Paris Stock Exchange this morning. Well, I'm joined now by Professor Anand Menon, who's the Director of UK in a Changing Europe. Welcome to the show, Professor Menon. So an astonishing night in Europe and a huge wake-up call to the EU. Tell us more.
It's certainly a wake-up call in some countries, like particularly France and Germany. I mean, the picture's different in different countries. So the Social Democrats, the incumbents, did all right in Denmark, for instance. In Sweden, the right-wing party didn't do as well as expected. But I think in France and Germany, and in Germany for the governing coalition, for France for the political system as a whole, you're absolutely right. This was something of a wake-up call.
And there's been another massive backlash, and that is against the Green movement. They've dropped 20-odd MEPs, and it seems when people get a chance to vote on Green policies, they're kicking back against net zero.
Yep, that seems to be very much the case. It's most marked in Germany, where, of course, it's slightly mixed in with the fact that people are really unhappy with the coalition government. So there are a variety of factors behind it. But absolutely, the Greens performed far worse than they'd been expecting and hoping. And actually, the other thing that's interesting in the European continent is the number of young people who are willing to vote for the right-wing parties, which is something that actually it doesn't happen so much in this country, but is quite a feature of European politics.
Yeah, it's all change in the European Union. Thank you so much for joining us for a quick hit there, Professor Anand Menon, who's the Director of UK in a Changing Europe, and loads to talk about in that case there. And that's astonishing switch of young voters in Europe towards the right-wing parties. That's something we don't see here, and there's lots to think about that. Now, thanks to everybody who's got in touch today on the show so far. And if you want to make your points, go to gbnews.com/your say. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
D-Day was shrouded in secrecy. Ken Hay was days away from landing in Normandy and still didn't know what was happening.
I don't think we really appreciated what we were going into. Actually, on D-Day, I was on a 30-mile route march, and we see the planes going over and that sort of thing. And we realised that wherever they were going, then we got the news that, in fact, it was Normandy, and we knew we were scheduled for that.
He arrived on Juno Beach at Coursieux-sur-Mer a few days after the main assault. The soldiers' role was to push forward into enemy territory.
I didn't land on D-Day. I landed shortly after in June. I was in the infantry, so I was a rifle and I was up the front.
While on night patrol on July 7th, his unit was attacked.
My brother was a corporal in the same platoon, and he was out with me. He got back. 16 of us out of 30 got back. 5 of us got captured, and 9 got killed.
Germans put him to work in a POW camp in Zabas, Poland. With Soviets advancing, the prisoners were forced to march for 1,000 miles.
At one point along there, my leg was chopped. I lay down in the snow. If it hadn't been for 2 guys who fell back in the column and picked me up, I'd have just gone to sleep and frozen to death. 2 American tanks turned up on the 22nd of April, Sunday afternoon, and we were liberated.
Ken feels pride for the role he played in Normandy and thanks God for keeping him alive.
People say, why did you volunteer for the services? It was a completely different atmosphere then. You did your bit.
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:33. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Now, there's lots more still to come between now and 6 o'clock. There's more reaction to the sad news that TV doctor Michael Mosley has died. Police say he died of natural causes. But first, it's your headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
The headlines this hour: 2 boys have become the youngest convicted murderers in Britain since the killing of 2-year-old James Bulger in 1993. The 12-year-olds were found guilty of murdering a man with a machete in a Wolverhampton park. They stabbed 19-year-old Sean Cesarhai in November last year. The jury's decision to convict was unanimous. His parents have said they'll never get over the loss of their son. In other news today, the Prime Minister says he never considered quitting despite heavy criticism over his early departure from D-Day commemorations in Normandy last week. It comes after the Prime Minister left a low profile over the weekend, avoiding questions from reporters. As rumours increased, he may step down. And the Prime Minister's promising to recruit 8,000 neighbourhood police officers in England and Wales if the Tories are re-elected. Rishi Sunak saying the plan would be funded in part by hiking visa fees and increasing the immigration health surcharge for overseas students. But Labour is calling it another empty promise from a desperate Conservative party. Meanwhile, Labour is promising to deliver free breakfast clubs in schools as part of a new childcare plan they say will save parents over £400 a year. They're also claiming it'll cut almost 500,000 days of school absences. For parents who already pay for before-school childcare, Labour says its funded breakfast clubs could cut the cost by up to £50 a week. And the Lib Dem leader Ed Davy has launched his party's manifesto with a pledge to put health and care at the centre of his campaign. Sir Ed spoke about growing up caring for both his mother and grandmother at home, adding the experiencing of carers is exhausting sometimes, but also full of love. And Reform UK has set out its economic policy for the election campaign. Plans include raising personal tax threshold allowances to £20,000, abolishing IR35 for sole traders, and raising the VAT threshold for small businesses to £150,000. Lastly, Greek police say TV nutritionist Dr. Mosley died from natural causes after his body was recovered following a 4-day search. The 67-year-old went missing after leaving his wife and friends on the island of Symi on Wednesday. He appeared to have taken the wrong route back to his hotel and collapsed where he couldn't be seen easily by search teams. That's the news. For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts, scan the QR code on your screen, or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Well, here's a quick snapshot of today's markets, and the pound buying you $1.2729 and €1.1840. The price of gold is £1,814 and 2 pence an ounce, and the FTSE 100 has closed for the day today at 8,228 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Polly. Now it's my favourite part of the show now, because I'm joined by Michelle Dewberry, the queen of prime-time political debate. Dubes, welcome to the show. What's on your menu?
Hello. Well, of course, Manifesto week this week. What do people actually want to see in this manifesto? And actually, do you think that these things are even worth the paper that they're written on? Hardly anyone seems to stick to what they promise these days, do they? Also, of course, I've heard you talking about this, Martin. I found this absolutely fascinating. The rise of the right across Europe. What does it all mean? I want to look at some of the reactions. People have been having an absolute meltdown. I mean, hello, have they not seen this coming? These whole notions of far right, hard right, extreme right. What about just basically being right? So many people have been raising concerns, Martin. Uncontrolled immigration. They don't buy into this obsession about net zero. They want criminals to be punished and so on and so forth. So I want to look at the outcome here, what it tells us. I want to know things like globalisation. Are people rejecting it now? And also, what do we think it might mean for the general election here in this country? And if I can try and squeeze it in, because I've got a packed show, I want to look at the state of water in our country as well. Traces of faeces in our drinking water in 2024. Absolutely disgraceful. And I've got a former Tory cabinet minister on the panel tonight as well. I won't reveal who it is. If you want to know, you'll have to watch.
An action-packed menu, as ever. The spirit of Brexit very much alive. Jude & Co, 6 till 7. Now, in a few minutes, I'll be joined by the Labour chair, Annalise Dodds, here in the studio to talk about there's no such thing as a free breakfast. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Johnny Ratner. The M90 is down to a single lane heading south through Perth and Kinross. From junction 5 to 4 between the Crook of Devon and Kelty. A car is currently on fire. Everyone's been funneled into the outside lane past the scene. And the M6 is crawling northbound through Cumbria just after the Cattle End exit 41. A car is also on fire on that stretch. North Yorkshire to the west of Skipton, the A682 blocked in Newsham and Napa at the scene of a serious accident. And there are long delays on the M25 heading out of Essex into Kent. The two left lanes are closed clockwise on the QE2 bridge where a lorry has broken down. M27 westbound, a van's broken down, causing queues towards the M3. And in Devon, the A374 at Plymouth is blocked by a collision in the North Cross roundabout. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Princess of Wales has said she's excited by a new report on prioritising early childhood, a cause, as we know, that she's closely associated with.
Yes, the task force findings claim that the UK could reap £45.5 billion in economic benefits if firms prioritise early childhood.
Well, let's talk about this now with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Good morning, Cameron.
Good morning.
I suppose it's characteristically Catherine, isn't it, to say she doesn't want to distract from this report by sort of people talking about her health. But we should start probably by saying she said she's not feeling well enough to come and talk about this in public, but sort of saying she's watching it, keeping a close eye from behind closed doors.
Yeah, absolutely. This should not be seen as a return to work by the Princess of Wales, but I have been told she's A, read the report and B, been briefed on it. But this all stems really from her work when she started being a working member of the royal family, where she was working closely with people suffering from addiction, mental health problems. And what she found is all of these issues tend to stem from a poor start in life, so the first 5 years of a child's life. So in January 2023, she set up Shaping Us, this awareness campaign for the early years. 2 months later, she convened the business task force, so 8 members of big businesses across the UK, and over a generation, that could add, as they claim, more than £40 billion to the UK economy each year. We spoke to Peter Grigg yesterday. He's the chair of Home Starts UK, a charity which supports young families. Let's hear what he said about the Princess's role in this.
She's been a real driving force behind the report and everything it's done. And when we've spent time with the Royal Foundation, what it does, it reminds everyone that this is really important work and early childhood matters, that more businesses should get involved, that more charities are out there for people who want to do more to support families and children. So it's been a wonderful experience.
The People's Channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:42. I'm Martin Daubney and this is GB News. Now I'm joined in the studio now by the Labour Party Chair, Annalise Dodds, who joins me. Delightful to have you in the studio. Caught my eye today. Labour's education policies like 1997 all over again. Education, education, education. The subject of free breakfasts in school. Now, we all know there's no such thing as a free lunch, so there's no such thing as a free breakfast. How much will this cost?
Well, you're right. It's not free. It will cost around £365 million. Now, we would pay for that through our programme to make sure that we're cracking down on tax avoidance and also that we're having a proper non-dom tax regime, not the one full of holes that the Conservatives have set out. We think this is really important because there's a very strong body of evidence about this. If kids have a decent breakfast before they're starting their schoolwork, then they're well settled, it's got significant health benefits, but it has really significant educational benefits as well. In fact, it's one of the best things that you can do in a school, so you make sure you get those better results for the children.
Sadiq Khan's free lunches, which aren't free, cost £140 million a year. That's only for 500,000 children. There are almost 13 million children in the UK. How come your policy is only almost 3 times as much?
Well, people are very welcome to check out all of the working on that. We've looked at exactly how much those breakfasts cost currently. Some of them previously were funded through the sugar tax. People might remember this having been an announcement a number of years ago, but there's not a universal programme. We are determined to deliver a universal programme because all the evidence shows when you have a programme that's available to all children, not only are you helping the parents as well because they've got that extra childcare at the beginning of the school day, but you're also delivering the greatest benefits.
Why should every child get a free breakfast or a free lunch? I mean, at the moment, 2 million kids get free school meals. We can all agree that the neediest should have it. Why should well-off, middle-class or even wealthy parents get a free breakfast that everybody pays for? Why is that fair to hard-working taxpayers?
Because we see such clear benefits from this, where you've had that approach in schools, the children are, in the main, far better settled. They're ready to learn because they're not just coming in, running into the classroom as soon as the bell is rung. They're ready. They're, of course, well fed as well, nutritional breakfast that they're receiving before they come in. And there's one other aspect as well that's really important for this. We've seen following COVID, of course, many children who haven't had that social experience necessarily when they were very young. It gives you that additional period of interaction between the children, but being supervised by adults. And again, that has very strong benefits.
One of the huge differences between 1997 and now is the state of the economy. Now we're 2.8 billion, trillion, beg your pardon, what's a billion and a trillion, in debt. The biscuit tin is completely empty. The only way of increasing revenue is to put up taxes or to print money. The magic money tree has been burnt to the ground. Where is the money going to come from for the Labour Party to turn the country around?
So we would make different choices on taxation. We've been very clear that we don't believe that the tax burden should go up on working people, so we won't be increasing income tax, VAT or national insurance. We would, though, make different choices when it comes to, for example, tackling tax dodging, as I said before, when it comes to having a proper windfall tax that doesn't have holes in it like the government's one, when it comes to VAT and business rates, breaks for private schools, and finally when it comes to private equity taxation as well. Different choices so that we can ultimately make sure that we're turning our country around and our public services within that.
But if you tax non-doms, they'll presumably clear off abroad. If you tax North Sea oil, they presumably won't invest in Britain. If you make the tax regime hostile in the UK, the investment won't come. Haven't the Labour Party learned from the mistakes of history that higher taxation, it just causes a huge brain drain? People don't passively sit around and wait to be taxed to the hilt. They clear off.
Actually, the evidence has indicated that's not the case when it comes to, for example, non-dom taxation. You don't see that kind of regime in every country. It's something that's quite peculiar to the UK in terms of how it's operated. And in fact, we think it's really important that if people live here, they should pay tax here. Now, I think that's what the vast majority of British taxpayers believe, and they're right. That's what Labour would ensure.
OK, Annalise Dodds, Labour Chair, thank you very much for joining us in the GB News studio. Now, about to be joined by a comedian to pay tribute to one of the giants of British comedy, Mayall, who sadly died 10 years ago yesterday. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Showers at first during the rest of the day, but they will tend to ease inland later, with clear skies overnight leading to a chilly feel by the start of tomorrow. We've got a northerly airflow across the UK at the moment. Low pressure moving into the continent, leaving behind a lot of cloud and quite frequent showers, especially for the north and the east of the UK. But inland, those showers will tend to ease overnight. Still the odd one going, but many places will turn drier with clear spells. And out of the breeze overnight, under those clear skies, temperatures in some spots will fall into the mid-single figures, perhaps even a touch of grass frost first thing Tuesday in the most sheltered spots. But actually, plenty of sunny spells as well, particularly across southern parts of England into South Wales, the Midlands, seeing some bright weather first thing. Temperatures rising fairly quickly through the morning as well. There'll be a lot of cloud, especially towards the north, one or two showers for Northern Ireland, Northern England, but the most frequent showers by this stage will be across the north and the east of Scotland, where the thickest cloud will be, and we're going to see this cool breeze continuing from the north. And as the morning continues, we'll see further showers crop up here and there. Just about anywhere could get a shower, but the most frequent downpours will once again be across Scotland, northern and eastern England. Fewer showers general compared to Monday, but still quite a number of them towards the east. In the west, that's where the best of the sunshine will be, highs here of 17 or 18 Celsius. Then through Tuesday evening, those showers continue for a time, but actually overnight it turns mostly dry with clear spells as a ridge of high pressure builds in. That'll lead to a fine day on Wednesday for many of us. Doesn't last though. More rain to come on Thursday, followed by showers on Friday.
This is GB News and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 6. Now to the post-mortem into the death of TV doctor Mayall Mosley. And police say he died of natural causes on the day he went missing on the Greek island of Symi. And earlier in the show, I spoke to Grigoris Leon, who's a forensic doctor.
Yes, well, first of all, as you know, today is made also the post-mortem examination to the morgue. I think a day before was the examination of the scene that was found Mr. Mosley. So first of all, I want to say also as a doctor that I'm very sad for his loss, also because he's a colleague. But as we can see from the first signs of the post-mortem examination, as we know, is a natural death. But we have to wait also the laboratory exams, because they will do histology exams and also toxicology exams that will conclude all the forensic investigation. But I think that we can speak from now for probably a natural death.
Now, 10 years ago yesterday, we lost the legend Rick Mayall. Some say that Rick Mayall opened the door for many of the young alternative comedians that are coming out today. And he's still massively, massively missed. Well, joining me now is the comedian Bruce Devlin. Bruce, welcome to the show. 10 years on, many, many people are still feeling the loss as sure and as sore as it was yesterday. An immense talent and one that's simply irreplaceable.
I think it's exactly what you say, a huge talent, and not only as a comedian, but as an actor, a writer. Someone who has been quite prolific in terms of coming up and, along with others, birthing a scene which people like myself and others owe a huge debt, because had it not been for trailblazers like him, Adrian Edmondson, Jennifer and Dawn, I don't think we would have comedy in the way that we do.
You know, comic strip, Young Ones, Alan, You Know What, Kevin Turvey, Bottom. I even like Filth, Richard and Cat Flap. I don't think he did a single bad thing.
No, I don't think he did. And also, when he played Alan Bastard, New Statesman, people said that that was an incredibly accurate portrayal of cabinet life at that time, and also as well an award winner, and he won an Emmy for his voiceover of Toad in Wind in the Willows, and obviously Drop Dead Fred. So not only a comedian, but a brilliant comic and straight actor as well.
And do you think his like will ever be seen again, or was he simply a one-off? They broke the mould.
I think he was pretty unique, and I think a lot of his colleagues would say that as well. So, yeah, I'm not necessarily sure. Of course, you're going to have people that will come through that will have similar abilities, but he was very unique.
Well, I know what I'm doing tonight, Bruce. I'm going to get tucked into some back catalogue. Filth, Rich and Cat Flap. That was my favourite super stuff. Bruce Devlin, thank you very much for joining us on the show. 10 years on, still missing Rick Mayall. Now, that's all from me for now. Dubes & Co, of course, is up next. I'll be back at 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. 3 o'clock tomorrow. Now, don't forget, the general election campaign is well underway. £6 billion wiped off the value of the Paris Stock Exchange today by Emmanuel Macron, calling that snap election. The spirit of Brexit very much alive, beating in the EU. Now it's time for your weather with Aidan McGibbon. See you tomorrow.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Showers at first during the rest of today, but they will tend to ease inland later with clear skies overnight, leading to a chilly feel by the start of tomorrow. We've got a northerly airflow across the UK at the moment. Low pressure moving into the continent, leaving behind a lot of cloud and quite frequent showers, especially for the north and the east of the UK. But inland, those showers will tend to ease overnight. Still the odd one going, but many places will turn drier with clear spells. And out of the breeze overnight, under those clear skies, temperatures in some spots will fall into the mid-single figures, perhaps even a touch of grass frost first thing Tuesday in the most sheltered spots. But actually, plenty of sunny spells as well, particularly across southern parts of England into South Wales, the Midlands, seeing some bright weather first thing. Temperatures rising fairly quickly through the morning as well. There'll be a lot of cloud, especially towards the north, 1 or 2 showers for Northern Ireland, Northern England, but the most frequent showers by this stage will be across the north and the east of Scotland, where the thickest cloud will be, and we're going to see this cool breeze continuing from the north. And as the morning continues, we'll see further showers crop up here and there. Just about anywhere could get a shower, but the most frequent downpours will once again be across Scotland, northern and eastern England. Fewer showers in general compared to Monday, but still quite a number of them towards the east. In the west, that's where the best of the sunshine will be. Highs here of 17 or 18 Celsius. Then through Tuesday evening, those showers continue for a time, but actually overnight it turns mostly dry with clear spells as a ridge of high pressure builds in. That'll lead to a fine day on Wednesday for many of us. Doesn't last though. More rain to come on Thursday, followed by showers on Friday.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. The M90 continues to crawl heading south through Perth and Kinross. Junction 5 to 4 as you head south of Kinross towards Kelty, basically after a car caught fire in the left lane. However, all restrictions have now been lifted. In Derbyshire, the eastbound carriageway of the A50 shut between Toyota Island and Melbourne. This is just south of Derby, of course, where a lorry caught fire. Lincolnshire, the A17 remains shut in the Sutton roundabout and Fosdyke after a 2-vehicle collision is being recovered. On the M1 in Bedfordshire, the southbound exit partly blocked of 13 the Bedford turn-off at the scene of a crash. There are queues towards London on the M4 through Berkshire, 6 to 5 heading away from Slough. Breakdowns blocking off the left lane. On the M25 heading out of Essex into Kent, long clockwise queues. The left lane shut on the QE2 bridge where a lorry has broken down. In Caerphilly, the Thornhill Road is shut following an accident. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's our summer spectacular. 3 top prizes that have to be won. There's cash. £15,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like this summer. Plus a brand new iPhone 15 with a set of Apple AirPods. And if that wasn't enough, we'll also treat you to some fun in the sun with £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction this summer. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.